You can have a sort of a satellite.
Sort of.
Not really.
We're starting now. Okay. Sorry. I love you too.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Vesuvius regular open meeting, April the 13th, 2021 at 2:10 in Council Chambers. I will ask for a resolution to exclude the public, that in accordance with Ministerial Order M192, the Town of Vesuvius regular open council meeting continues to be closed to the public due to the inability to meet physical distancing recommendations made under the Public Health Act in council chambers located at 8707 Main Street. And that to ensure openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability, Town of Vesuvius regular open council meetings will continue to be recorded, streamed, and published on the town's website, and that the regular open meetings be streamed on Eastlink's community channel. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you. Approval of the agenda and late items. Is there any late items? No, thank you. Could we have an approval of the agenda as printed? Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you. And adoption of some minutes. The regular open minutes of March the 23rd, 2021, and the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel minutes from March the 23rd. So could we please have a motion to approve those? Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you. No business arising, so we're going to go to water matters. And that is page 16.
Your Worship, thank you.
Oh, that's you, sorry.
Yeah, no,
we're
that's okay.
twinning, and you're doing it, yeah.
I was just informed that I was going to give this report. No problem. I did look at it earlier, even though my signature's not on it. This is a report in regards to borrowing to fund the municipal portion of rural water twinning costs for water districts 8 and 9. The city was successful in getting grant applications. I'll read this report, it's not that long. So the background is to design and construct rural water twinning projects as in the 5-year financial plan. This construction began in 2019 and is scheduled for completion later this year. The rural water twinning project is a very significant upgrade to the water district system, expanding the domestic twinning through System 9. This is a $5.77 million project, with $4.231 million coming from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Grant Program and $1.538 million through borrowing. A loan authorization bylaw received the approval from the Inspector of Municipalities on October 2nd, 2019, and Council adopted the bylaw on November 4th of 2019. The bylaw allows the town of Vesuvius to borrow up to $1.538 million over 20 years for the construction of the rural water twinning project. Town of Vesuvius issues the long-term debt financing through the regional district as per the community charter, who in turn borrows from the municipal finance authority. A resolution from council requesting consent to the borrowing needs to be made and submitted to the RDUS and is shown as option 1 in this report. At this time, there are no other funds available for council to consider option 2, which was alternatives to borrowing the money required to complete the project. For the project to be included in the fall debt issue of the Municipal Finance Authority Regional District has to have their application for a certificate of approval on their security issuing bylaws to the ministry by July 30th, 2021. The implications for the community: ensures the town water supply is in good working order. Important to note that this will provide people with potable water on a year-round basis. Boil water notices were issued again for people still consuming domestic water from the agricultural irrigation systems, 8 and 9 that were recently turned on again. And so those properties need to return to boil water before consumption. This is going to take care of that issue for a lot of those properties in that area, but not all of them. Organizational, there's the administration follow-up. The budget is included in the 5-year financial plan. The significant dates are that the bylaw was approved by the Inspector of Municipalities on October 2nd after first 3 readings by Council on October the 15th, 2018. It was adopted by Council on November 4th, 2019, and a statutory approval from the Minister was approved on December the 18th, 2019. July 30th this year is the deadline to submit the resolution requesting to be included in the fall borrowing of the RDOS through the Municipal Finance Authority. Sustainability ensures funding secured for the construction of the rural water cleaning project. The options are that Council approve the borrowing from the MFA of British Columbia as part of the 2021 fall borrowing session of $1,538,859 as authorized through loan authorization bylaw number 1348, 2018, and that the RDOS be requested to consent to our borrowing over a 20-year term and include the borrowing in the security issuing bylaw. Option 2 is to utilize funds other than long-term borrowing to pay for the balance, and as noted earlier, no alternative funds have been identified in the financial plan. So the recommendation is for option number 1, Your Worship.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor King.
If this gets passed, what would be the timeline for the water actually be turned on, the town water to be turned on to these residents? Do you have any idea?
Targeting completion by end of this year?
Yes. Thank you.
And I had a question. I was asked if there was, because not all the water twinning will be done in 8 and 9. Mr. Brownstein, do we have any idea how much property is left that is not included in this? And I know there is not a plan to include it at the moment. How do we deal with that?
So, upon completion of contract 2, which is just part of System 9, System 9 will be completely domestic service.
Yes.
So all of the areas south of town will have domestic servicing. The area to the north, which is considered within System 8, there's probably about, as a rough guess, 25 to 50 properties that will be still outside the domestic servicing boundaries. Again, that's towards the north end of Soyuz Lake. And again, for timelines in which that'll come forward, right now, I have nothing, it's not even mentioned in the 5-year capital plan, so if that's something the council wants to move forward, that's something that we can move forward. Again, it would probably be, again, the grant funding, etc. That's probably another, $4 or $5 million system upgrade to go at that mark, so.
Thank you very much, and I think that needed to be said because I think originally it was assumed that all of the properties in 8 and 9 would be dealt with, and there will be some that are not. Councillor Harvey, you had a question?
Yeah, it's just on the report. It seems to me it's procedural. That is, we already have a bylaw for the borrowing, but this is, for some reason, I don't need to know, maybe it's going through the RDOS, and so we need to have another resolution. I'm just confused that the report introduces the notion of utilizing funds other than borrowing when we've already agreed to borrow. And so is it procedural or is it substantive? Help me out here, please.
I think it was born out of a desire and a practice of providing council with options. So we wanted to present an option, and the option was to consider other funds that haven't been provided for through the financial plan. And as you'll recall, council has approved the 5-year financial plan now that contemplates these borrowing revenues coming in to fund the municipal portion of the capital cost of this work. The borrowing process and security issuing has become a little bit complicated, but they think they streamlined it because municipalities used to have to do their own security issuing bylaw after adoption of the loan authorization bylaw, and then they submitted that to the RDOS, who then submitted the whole works on behalf of all the municipalities to the MFA. And now we no longer have to do the step of a security issuing bylaw with inspector approval. Instead, the RDOS does that. And the way the municipal bond system works is that then basically pledges all the properties in the regional district and the municipality doing the borrowing as indebted for this debt in case of default. And that's what creates a system where municipalities have such a strong credit rating is because it's backed by everybody's property. And I always like to remind myself and councils, whenever you're approving borrowing and loan authorizations, in effect, you're putting a mortgage against people's properties. And so, it's important, but you're right, this is the motions that we have to go through to get to the end result that was already decided.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Is there someone who would like to make a motion on one of these options, please? Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll make a motion based on the staff recommended option number one.
Thank you very much. Are you seconding that, Councillor King? Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Pardon me? Oh.
We're just
Oh, I'm
catching
sorry.
Councilor Moran.
I'm looking to see your hand coming up, but is it better if he?
He said he's in favor.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
Yeah, he's not on the
He's on the
video,
phone.
he's just on the phone.
Yeah. Councillor Marrera. What are Councillor Marrera?
He's on the phone.
He's on the phone.
oh, pardon me, I didn't even know
I
that.
didn't either.
Hi,
You should have made the
Councillor
motion.
Moran, I didn't know you were there.
No, it's fine.
That is carried then. Am I correct? Okay, we're okay with that. And now we have the contract award for a fire rapid response vehicle. And Mr. McCaskill, are you going to speak to this?
I am, thank you. Good afternoon. So, staff, Associated Fire Rescue is requesting that council authorize staff to enter into a contract with Intercontinental Truck Body Incorporated for the supply and delivery of a rapid response vehicle, as they were the highest rated submission as per the RFP evaluation criteria. The town of Vesuvius requested proposals to replace our bush truck with a rapid response vehicle. 2 proposals were received and scored: price, suitability of equipment specifications, warranty, after-sale service, and delivery date were considered in the process of evaluating submission. The budget for this project was $260,000 as per the 2021 capital plan. Our options are: option 1 being that council award the contract to Intercontinental Truck Incorporated for up to the amount of $256,765.23 plus $11,998.38 GST for the delivery of a rapid response vehicle, and that staff and signatories be authorized to enter a contract for the products specified in the proposal documents. Option 2, that council of the town of Vesuvius authorizes up to $128,400 be borrowed under section 175 of the community charter from the municipal finance authority for the purpose of purchasing a new rapid response vehicle, and that the loan be repaid within 5 years with no rights of renewal. And option 3, not to award the contract at this time. So recommendation would be both options 1 and 2.
Thank you very much. So, Mrs. Hilson, do we need 2 motions on this? It sounds like we do, but I don't see it over in my agenda package. So,
Yeah, it should be separate.
Yes.
so we're going to do that we award the first one and then authorize 128,401. Okay, so we do actually need to go with options 1 and options 2 in order to do this. Am I correct? Okay, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just a couple of questions. The BC Inc., so British Columbia,
Yeah,
the truck
yeah,
body BC.
it's out of, I believe, actually, I don't, it is BC, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there you go, it is, I know it's down there.
I'm also curious about how many submissions you got and
2.
and
One,
any idea what the amount was on that?
the other one was quite a bit lower, but they did not, it was a stock truck, they already had it built their way, and they weren't even looking at changing it up for what we wanted.
There was mandatory criteria included in the RFP, and they didn't satisfy those requirements.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so go ahead,
Yeah, thank you,
Councillor
Brenda.
King.
I'll move option one, that we award the contract to International Truck Body.
All right, is there a seconder? Councillor Rhodes is seconding that. Any other questions about that? Then all in favor? Thank you. And we're now looking for option two. Is there someone who would like to make
Gonna
that
get half a
resolution?
truck.
What did you say?
He gets half a truck.
I think it's half a truck. Councillor Rhodes is moving option number two. Councillor Bennett is seconding that. Any other questions or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you. I think, just to be clear, just as a reminder, the other half of the 256,000 is coming from the BC COVID relief funds that we got. Is that not correct?
The town's portion of the cost, because participants in this also are the fire protection areas, the Soyuz Indian Band lands that are designated, and the Rural Fire Protection District. Our understanding is the Rural Fire Protection District was gonna pay with reserve funds that they had, a lump sum payout their obligations towards the cost over 5 years. OIB lands would be assessed their proportionate cost each year for the next 5.
Okay, thank you. So, moved and seconded yet?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we'll just ask, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. McCaskill. And now we're at Desert Sunrise Marina, intent to lease. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Desert Sunrise Marina is scheduled to open May 15th. The Marina Management Agreement expired, and staff developed a new request for proposal to advertise and give notice that this agreement is available to bid. Staff worked with interior purchasing to complete the process. Staff is bringing forward an intent to lease for council's consideration. With the assistance of interior purchasing, staff with the assistance of interior purchasing evaluates the proposals and is recommending SunWest Investments Corporation. They were the highest ranking applicant of the RFP. The term of the lease is for 3 years with an option to renew for an additional 2 years. Based on the proposal, the applicant has agreed to pay the town $8,000 a year to operate the marina. They will also provide general liability insurance of not less than $5 million. SunWest Investments Corporation has past experience in operating marinas, and they will be utilizing 2 commercial slips to operate their boat rental business. If council approves the intent to lease, ads will be placed in 2 consecutive newspapers and at the public notice posting place for the disposition of land. After the ads are published, staff will bring a report to the following meeting of council for approval. In terms of implications for the community, having an operator on site at the marina during the busy months is beneficial to all patrons. SunWest's proposal indicates that they will have safety as a priority for all users. Organizational, working with the operator to ensure successful operation. The budget is set at $24,000 for 3 years of the agreement. Significant dates, May 15th is the official first day the operator will need to be on site. And sustainability. Having an operator on site with experience will ensure the sustainability of the marina and its surroundings for many years. In terms of options, option number 1, the council authorizes the notice of intention to lease a portion of the property legally described as Park Block 755, Plan A 1057, DL2450S, SDYD, and Lot 763, DL2450S, Plan 2449, SDYD, and more commonly referred to as Desert Sunrise Marina, Soyuz, BC, to SunWest Investments Corporation for a 3-year term commencing on May 15th, 2021, at the rate of $8,000 per year with an option to renew for an additional 2 years. And option number 2, that council not approve the intent to lease at this time, and staff is recommending option number 1. Upon council approval, staff will post in the local newspaper and on the town's public notice posting places for 2 consecutive weeks. Staff will bring the agreement to the next meeting of council for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Council, what is your pleasure on this? Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gerald, I'm curious about other applicants and costs associated with that as well.
We had about 6 or 7 applicants who showed up at the site meeting, and only 2 officially submitted proposals.
So this particular one was considered much better than the other proposal. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. Yeah, the biggest thing was the experience, or the lack of experience on the other proposal.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank you,
King.
Madam Mayor. I see this contract goes to September 15th. If we have great weather, do they have an opportunity to extend for a couple of weeks?
Right now, that's what's in there. We've always only had it from May 15th to September 15th, but the actual marina itself is open until the end of October.
They can continue to use their commercial slips.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So they would just lose the office space and the right to park a utility trailer in the parking lot with equipment.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
One of the main differences between the other proposals as well was the breadth of the offering here. Here we're talking about power boats, maybe a pontoon boat, maybe some kayaks and stand-up paddle boards. The other folks were only offering one product. And again, it was largely the lack of experience managing a marina and having protocols for safe operators.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll move option 1 that we lease it to SunWest Investments.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett is seconding that. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. That'll be good to have that up and running in a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I was losing my ear, but it was cutting in and out every now and then, so I couldn't quite hear that well, but it was okay now.
Okay. Well, good luck with your COVID shot tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next is the Legion Beach and Road Improvements. Mr. Brownstein, is this why you wore your new shoes?
Yes, it is, Your Worship.
Those shoes aren't new.
These shoes are very old.
Need a matching tie.
Actually, no, honestly, I have a matching tie.
Oh,
Next time.
we expect it the next time. Okay, so you're going to explain this in great detail, are you?
I'm gonna try, Your Worship.
Okay.
So yes, there's a staff report before you in regards to Legion Beach, as well as the road improvements in 89th and 62nd. We were successful in getting our provincial tourism dependent community grant of $700,000. This is one financial aspect of a $3.5 million project to make the Legion Beach area more accessible to visitors, more accessible to the community, provide another focal point for Osoyoos in general. There are a couple options before council. We'll go over some of the other details afterwards, but option 1 is full project build out at this time. I realize there's some sticker shock at $3.5 million. Fortunately, we can fund this through current budget allocations over the next 3 years, as outlined in the staff report. So with the $700,000 grant funding, we're taking another $500,000 from water and sewer reserves. We'll be reallocating some of our community works funds, a total of $1.052 million. We'll use some of our current operating capital, so the design this year for the washrooms of $45,000. We will use some of our land acquisition reserves at $500,000. and will completely use up our RMI waterfront enhancement portions that we haven't used to date at $760,000, which is a $3.557 million project. Option 2 is to phase it. So we can phase this in 2 ways. So phase 1 would be a $2.6 million project. So that would include such things as the new bathrooms, some of the parking lot realignments, some of the road realignments. However, it would not fully develop the area. It will not give you a finished product. We'd still have to be coming in and spending another $1.195 million at a later date to build the rest of the wall, to complete repaving, allow full traffic movement at 62nd and 89th, etc. In reality, if we decide to go with option 2, you're actually spending $3.8 million total project costs over the long term, because of the fact that now we have to pay for mobilization twice to the contractor, and any other economy of scale that we may have gained releasing this as one long project. And of course, option 3 is just not to move ahead. Give the money back to the province and say thanks but no thanks, and we will continue to move forward with the Four Seasons Washroom in 2022 and walk down that path. However, we will get lots of additional food truck and vendor spaces. We will not be able to provide accessibility to the beachfront for Legion Beach, and it would be a great loss of $700,000 for the provincial funding for this community to make this project a focal point. I'm going to turn to the floor and ask for questions, comments, concerns.
Go ahead, Councillor Harvey, you're first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a great deal of difficulty with this. A number of reasons. We have a 5-year capital plan, and to tear it open as we lurch from grant opportunity to grant opportunity, in my view, is no way to steer the good ship Vesuvius. It's an interesting project to be sure, but to upset the entire program and to take land acquisition, I don't see any land being acquired here, and the price of land is only going up. And so when we want to buy something, anyway, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so I'm going to go ahead and move option 3.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to go ahead? Councillor Rhodes, are you seconding that first of all?
Yeah, and I do have questions as well.
Go ahead, you second it, and then go ahead with your questions. Thank you.
The 2 projects that you're in option 1 that you're talking about deferring, the Hummingbird Lane
Yes.
improvement and the Maple Drive improvement.
Yep.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how important are those? Are they aesthetic improvements? Are they necessary improvements? And will there be consequences of deferring them?
Through the chair to Councillor Rhodes, in all honesty, I don't know where those projects came from. I don't know why they're there. I don't have any background information as to why they were brought forward as of greater importance than any other road surfacing or road redesign, or 92nd Avenue as being a more important aspect to these projects. These were here prior to this current position being held by me. So again, I'm just using what's been put on the 5-year capital plan to say, we can defer these projects. These projects may be less of importance than other ones. I honestly can't answer that question for you.
I would feel more comfortable if we had an answer to those questions. I know during the budget process, often we go by these things rapidly because they've been around for a while. And my main reason for asking that is to try to avoid a Harbour Key type situation with all of the road issues that we have down there with the heaving and the water and all that kind of stuff. I would hate to take away from, important projects to do a huge revamping of an area in our town. And, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to find out the details on them and see what it is, so that we can avoid consequences in the future.
Yeah. appreciate that. I mean, Hummingbird Lane and Maple Drive were there. You brought up Harbour Key. That was not even mentioned in our 5-year capital plan. So again, there needs to be a total revamp of these roads to find out what our actual priorities are in regards to the community and in regards to council. These projects, I don't know how long they've been sitting on the list for. And they've probably been deferred and deferred and deferred and deferred and deferred. This project, however, provides us with the best opportunity to redesign 62nd and 89th, increase traffic safety, provide the community with access to a beach from all aspects in regards to accessibility, provide that second focal point. Again, I agree with your train of thought, but at what point do I say, well, okay, these projects can be deferred somewhere else to something else, but I don't know what they are at that point as well. So I hear you, but
Well,
yeah.
it makes the decision-making process to move forward with the proposed information that you have and the project, if they are incidental improvements that we're looking at. I would like to avoid taking funding away from those projects if they were important.
Well, I guess my answer to that, if not to be rude, Councillor Rhodes, but if they were of high importance, they should have been completed 3 years ago when they were first brought on to the capital program. If they were of great importance to council and to the community, they've been sitting on books and just forwarded and forwarded and forwarded and forwarded because nobody wants to take on the work. I appreciate it and I understand it, but we have an opportunity here to use some of that funding that has just been sitting on the books. So.
Thank you. If there are several other people would like to speak. Councillor Bennett, would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor Carla. Just a quick question. If we took that $700,000, is there a project we could do with the $700,000 without having to go option 1 or 2, or we're going to spend 3.5 or $3 million?
So we went into this with a budget proposal to the province saying that if you were to give us this money, this is what we would move forward with. Changing our minds now and saying, oh no, now we're not going to commit to what we agreed to in the grant proposal probably wouldn't look good upon the province. If we all said, no, we're going to switch gears because now we don't want to fund this anymore. And we're going to go over here, we're going to spend the $700,000. They might pull back and say, well, then you don't get your $700,000. That's the thing that was brought forward in the fall last year was the council that says, here we go, here's unfortunately a mega project. If we're successful, is council willing to move forward? And at that time, council was willing to move forward. I agree. As soon as you start to see the sticker and you start to go, wait a second, and I fully appreciate council's view on this. But again, unfortunately, no. To answer your question, no, I can't just take that $700,000 and spend it over here.
Okay, Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be voting against this motion. I think it's very imperative when a town of this size can get $700,000 to do some improvements in this town. I think is a major asset. I would have no problem moving forward with option 1.
Mr. Chabot?
Your Worship, I did want to speak to a good point that Councillor Harvey made about use of land acquisition funds. He says there's no land acquisition here, and he's correct, there isn't. Typically with reserve funds, you either have a bylaw that established them, or you have a policy that defines and describes their purchase, or the purpose and what the fund would be used for. We've not uncovered any such thing here, so really it's a financial earmark set of funds from year over year, prior year's surplus, getting allocated, saying we should put some money aside in case we need to acquire something. So we're not bound by the strict restrictions that usually surround use of reserve funds. If there's a bylaw that establishes them, or if you have a policy statement that says, here's what they're for. If we go and use $500,000 of those earmarked funds, we will still have in excess of $1 million in reserve for other purposes. And believe me, there are other purposes. We've got to look hard at what we can and can't do. In regards to the provincial funding, before they approved our grant, because we'd applied for $1 million, they came back and said, well, we don't have $1 million that we can give you. We can give you $700,000. Please tell us what parts you could complete. And that was parts 1 through 8 in Mr. Bronstein's report that comprise a $2.605 million project, but then leads you to a partly finished project rather than a completed project, and kind of compels you to continue down the road to do the other parts. So in order to access the grant funds, we needed to sign a funding agreement. We don't have to, like Mr. Bronstein says, we can send the money back if we don't want to proceed with this project. I think it's a worthy project. It's a lot of money, but a lot of things cost far more than they used to. And I really see it as a bit of a legacy project for this community and this council. If you could find a way to pull it off, it's significant improvements.
Can I give my 2 bits worth first, and then we'll go back
Of course.
to No, but I'm the only one who hasn't spoken to this yet, so I will, and then I have Dr. Rhodes. And
It's
gotta be the truth.
Councillor Rhodes and Councillor Harbour, you both of you. So and I've looked through this several times. I have some concerns. One of them, of course, which I've said before, is the washroom. And I think that $450,000 for a washroom and change room down there is quite frankly outrageous, and I have said that before. When I look at the washroom that is down at Gyro, and it has probably 5-6 times the parking places, maybe more than that, that go with that area. It has the women's washroom anyway, I haven't been in the men's, but it has 2 sinks and 3 bathroom stalls. It does not have any change rooms. There is an outside tap. To me, that was perfectly acceptable down at Gyro. Legion Beach is a much smaller beach, and I think a smaller washroom, such as the kinds that we have in a couple of other spots in town, like Goodman Park, those are very appropriate for that size of a beach. So that's my first thing. I think that if we are going to build a washroom, we should look at it. Now, and I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but that's one of the things that concerns me. The other thing is that when I look at I really think the most important thing about dealing with this park is or in the beach, is the safety issue. And I drive by there all the time, and they do have, there's a electronic speed reader up there right now. And I'm usually pretty good about staying in speed, but it flashed at me when I went by at lunch, and it said that I was going slightly higher than I should have been. So I think it's a really necessary thing. It's a terrible road configuration there, and so for me, the most important thing would be the safety and redoing the road. That being said, there are 14 parking stalls according to this, the pictures anyway, 2 of them being handicapped. So there's not a lot of room down there to park. And right now, there's about 10 spots in there, plus people have been parking along the road, which to me is the worst part of it, because it causes not only people to go faster than they should down there, but it's hard to see. So I really think this project is important in order to fix that. I think that looking at the plans, that there would be no way that anybody could park along there by our new facility that we have. And to me, that's a positive. And that makes it much safer for everybody. So the bottom line is, I'm in favor of moving ahead with this, but I'm also thinking that we need to look at some of the things that where we could cut down a bit. And you know what, I've said it before, I always think that our washroom down there is one of the areas where we could adjust things. So that's my 2 bits worth, and now I'll let Councillor Rhodes and then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Korloff. Going back to option one and the RMI comment that you made in there, the $760,000, what impact will that have on our RMI program? Are we giving up other projects to move forward with that? And the other question I wanted to ask was about community engagement. If we move forward with this, at what point will that happen?
Two good questions. As for RMI funding and where we're at and whether or not this has any impact on any projects, as far as I know, no. That $760,000, again, one of those pots of available funding that's been sitting there and just carried forward with nothing being achieved from it. As for your question in regards to public engagement, most definitely. That will be part of this program moving forward, and once, should council decide to move forward with this project, we will then start to engage the community and put it up there and say, what are your thoughts?
Were you gonna ask the timeline on it? I'm wondering when, was that part of your question?
Yeah, I had meant to be, I just didn't bring it up.
Well, I just am wondering if the 700,000, is there a timeline on when this has to be used?
Yes, I believe it's 2020.
End of 2023, I think.
Okay, so we've got a bit of time.
And if I could comment just on the RMI, the strategy has a program area, waterfront enhancement and financial allocation of RMI funds, and then it shows other municipal funds, and it describes potential projects mostly focused on Gyro Beach that lack the specificity and the detail to be able to build anything. We're years away from approaching a plan, and the concept area described in there is unachievable with funds available. We'd spend more than everything on this entire project if we tried to achieve the vision described in that. So we would have to go to the province and convince them that allocating these funds to a slightly different waterfront enhancement project was acceptable to them. That would be some of the work we'd have to do as well, if this was approved.
Did you?
Well, I have some concerns about it because I don't want to be giving up projects that we have in the works right now. And this is somewhat of a surprise to me, so we do not have this money that we would have to apply for it.
No, we have the money, but we've had a very general statement of intent as to what we've used them for. We have no design drawing, we have no plans. It talks about outdoor skating rink, talks about pier, etc. We have no cost estimates, we have no Class D estimates for any of this stuff. So how we were ever gonna go about achieving that, and we wanna make good use of this funds, leverage it to its maximum advantage. And if waterfront enhancement is a priority, and I think it is and it should be, this community is only gonna get busier, that it would be consistent and the province would say, yeah, we'll allow you to use those funds over in that area.
I don't want to sound naive if I could. I'm surprised that we have that money. I thought the RMI program was pre-designated programs with the anticipated funding that you were going to get, and we got 2 years in advance. Is this a different aspect of RMI, or?
No, we have, I think there's 9 different program areas with very vaguely described plans of expenditure, and then you try to convert those into reality. For instance, the trails budget for allocation, the pedestrian trail built between Lakeshore and Cottonwood. It costs more than the entire allocation towards trails in the RMI, and that's something we had to adjust our sales for. So, yeah, I think because when the RMI was reviewed and the cabinet was going to approve it, they gave every municipality that was a participant a really short timeline to come up with a new 3-year resort development strategy. So they were done really quickly and fairly generally, fairly vague.
Okay. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Responding to CAO Chabot on a couple of points. The notion that land acquisition budget isn't really land acquisition budget, it can be used for anything we want, strikes me as unacceptable. The words we use are important. Staff came to council in the budget process, asked for $500,000 more to contribute to the land acquisition budget. To me, in my mind, that's what it means, land acquisition. The public reading the report, I'm pretty sure to them it means land acquisition. Notwithstanding, we don't have a bylaw or a dedicated fund, it still means land acquisition. And to pull it out from under that for use in something else is not acceptable. Or, you know, we have to call it something else, and we didn't, and that's what this budget is. The other aspect is legacy projects. It's up to council to pursue their own legacy projects, not, you know, and for me, this is not it. For me, you know, that we've got all this RMI funding there, and there hasn't been movement on plans, but this one has come up out of thin air. I don't know, it's contrary to my thinking. Like, you know, why haven't we moved forward with some of those plans at Gyro on the front? I mean, I realize there's some things in the way, but plans can move forward, and they haven't. And all of a sudden, we've got this one that came out of nowhere. It is not in the capital budget, not in the 5-year plan, and the grant money is less than 20% of the overall capital budget project. And we have to go and deplete a whole bunch of other projects and plans in order to do this one. It's unconscionable to me.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Your Worship, I'd just like to respond to the comments about the land acquisition reserve fund that really has no terms of reference around it, no establishment bylaw. There was no intent here to be deceitful or to be clever with words. The report plainly says that council would have to reallocate the funds dedicated towards land acquisition in a financial plan amendment towards this project. So I think it's just more semantics and reading the words and what the intent was. It wasn't to hide this or pretend that we were requiring something we didn't already have. It was to redesignate them for a use which would require council's approval of the financial plan amendment as well. So there's other steps in this process as well. So I take a little bit of umbrage with comments like, you know, that it's unacceptable, or a suggestion that it was trying to be tricky, because that was not what we were doing here.
So, thank you. We knew that this project, which is why Mr. Brownstein wore his shoes, he knew that this project was going to cause some concern with everybody. At the moment, it's been moved and seconded that we go with option 3. So, is the only, if that was passed, the washroom would still go forward, but nothing else, and would the part of the 700,000 be able to be used for the washroom? No.
Unfortunately, Your Worship, no.
No. Okay. So that, I just wanted to make sure about that one. So I'm kind of confused on this one myself. I'm not quite sure how I feel. I think it's a good project, mainly for the safety issues, but it is not a large area, and it's not, most of the people that go down to Legion Beach, I would think, would be walking. I don't think it's a beach that you would get in your car with all the kids and all your toys and go down there. Gyro is a much better area, or even Cottonwood, to do that. So I think that it's a very nice little beach down there. I think it's good to make it, that whole area, much safer, and I like the plans. Do I think that spending 3.5 million is a good thing? I'm not sure. To me, it's a whole ton of money when we have numerous other things that probably are just as important for developing in our town. We're looking at, a swimming pool. We're looking at redoing a town hall. There are numerous things that need to be looked at over, not just this year, but over the next 10 years. So I'm still trying to sort this out. Councillor King, you have
thank you,
another?
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Let's look at it again. I support this new project. I think the new look for the town will give it a whole new look. I think more people would use that area. I know, talking to the Age-Friendly Accessibility Committee, we've been talking about how to improve the steps there and people getting down to the beach. This would satisfy that group immensely. I mean, all I can say, I think this is a great project and it should move forward.
Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thanks again, Mayor McCordoff. The kind of pump house station that, which budget, would that come out of this one, or,
Sorry, Councilor Rhodes, didn't follow you
yeah,
there.
you know the building that's down there?
Taking the old.
Oh, taking the old one out,
Yeah,
that's coming out of the wastewater budget,
okay,
because it's affiliated with the
not,
sewer system.
not attached to this
Not
at
attached
all?
to this at all.
So,
Motion on the floor.
we have a motion on the floor that we go with option 3 which is not to complete this project and return the grant funding to the province. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Against? Okay, so that did not pass. That failed. There was 2 pro and 3 against. Now, could we come up with something else? Go ahead, Councillor King.
I'll move option 1. I guess it would be just following the comments of the mayor. If there was a way we could cut down on washroom and possibly save a couple $100,000, I think would be greatly appreciated. Anyhow, I'll move option 1.
Is there a seconder for option 1? I'll second it to put it on the table. So, Councillor King, you said your,
Oh, I'll
Yeah.
make one more comment.
good, go
I
ahead.
just can't see option 2. I can't see doing a project halfway when you're in motion and in the end it'll cost an extra $500,000 to $1 million to finish. To me, just doesn't make sense. So again, I think this should be a move forward.
The other thing that Councillor Rhodes was asking about was, could we have a little bit more information on the 2 projects that would be the Hummingbird Lane and the Maple Drive? Could we get a little bit more information on that for the next meeting? That might help, but.
So you were, just to clarify, what kind of further information are you looking for, what those budgets involve, or what those projects involve, because your guess is as good as mine on what those projects involve.
Yeah,
I
I'd
can
like
try
to
to give
know
you some
how
ideas,
important
some
they
values.
are, and we don't see the amount in those 2, or do we? Do we have that somewhere? The Hummingbird and the Maple Drive,
So those would be coming in the community works programs.
so
So
that's
that-
540?
Yeah, so that 1.052 would encompass those 2 projects.
Oh, okay. Councillor Rhodes?
thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So, I would like to ask our Director of Planning if she has any comments about this. Totally respecting your refusal to comment on it. If you would like to say something, that'd be very appreciative. And secondly, I'm curious about next steps. Because if something goes sideways with this program, we can back out of it, right? I know that's a kind of a non-comment, but.
So- So,
You know,
Councilor Rose, what do you mean by next steps and if it goes sideways?
So just to cherry pick a couple of those 2 projects that we just finished talking about, if they rise to the top and they're absolutely essential that we do those, that has a big financial impact on the motion that we're working on right now. Agreed?
Agreed?
Yeah, so we need to know about that. So let's say there's big fissures in the middle of the road, and I'm just embellishing for effect, and that we need to go in there and do it, and that takes away the financial ability to move forward with the option that we're talking about right now. That's why I think it's important that we know about those and any other thing that might influence us.
So I guess to answer that question, Councilor Rose, is, again, you're still coming back with a 5-year capital plan amendment to this, for this to happen. So as part of that amendment, which will be brought back at a later council date, we have that further discussion in regards to those two sections of the road if you'd like.
Okay.
And I'll try to provide some sort of background information as to why those two sections were chosen at that particular time.
So sidewalks on Maple?
It was sidewalks on Maple.
This is gonna fix curb and gutter.
Yeah, I believe so. And again, I'll confirm that and tell you exactly what was proposed if I can figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
Wasn't road bed failure.
No.
Can we ask Jean
Yeah.
next, or what did you have?
Well, it was just really, if this was to move forward with option one, there's still 3 or 4 steps that would have to get passed before this would ever move forward anyhow. Am I hearing that correct?
We're gonna need
Asking-
one additional step.
Asking the
Just
public,
just the
is
budget,
that part of it?
no, the budget.
Yeah, the public would be engaged about the improvements, and they
Yeah.
would give their opportunity for feedback on, for instance, the washroom. What does
Yes.
the public want
Yeah.
to see there? The beauty of option one, I think, is there's no borrowing.
Okay, Ms. McKay, do you have anything that you, or are we putting you in an awkward
I'd like
position?
to apologize.
I don't mind being,
No, didn't mean to put you on the
no,
spot.
I actually don't mind being put, thank you, Madam Mayor, and respectfully, councillors, I don't mind being put on the spot. In this particular case. I'm actually quite supportive, the planning department is supportive of the proposal to move forward with the improvements. The road improvements are obviously absolutely necessary. As we continue to increase the number of people on the other side of the highway that use that access into town, it's only gonna grow in numbers, particularly as we see phases 2 and 3 of Meadowlark, and soon, I've also been in touch with the developer and the owners of the property for phase 4 of Meadowlark. So we're gonna see over the next 5 to 10 years increase in the number of people that are using that access, and of course the 74th Avenue access as well, to come into town. What we heard during the OCP process from our community members was they wanted to see improvements at that particular park, that many people that live in the community, is particularly in that area, felt that that is their community park. They felt that the park at Gyro, while it was obviously accessible to the community, that it was seen predominantly as a visitor's park, by virtue of the fact that most people access the park with a vehicle. People that live in that particular area of the Legion Beach area, they often access the park with their kids in strollers or in their little wagons. I mean, I'm a person that also visits that park with my wagon and all my goody beach toys and everything in my wagon. I did. Sippy cups. I did hear, as did many members that participated in the OCP review process and our community engagement, that people really were looking forward to seeing improvements there, and it also complementary to the splash park, of course, park that's existing there as well. And to top it off, I do have 2 additional properties on 89th that are looking at putting in multifamily developments. So there you have it. That area is going to grow very, very quickly. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, we have a motion on the floor to go with option 1. And it seems that incorporated in that would be some steps to make sure that we look at some of these issues, and we're not going out there to start building today without dealing with several other things like community support and information, and so that makes me feel a little bit
Maybe
better.
do a budget amendment that could get turned down there, it still gets
Yeah,
turned down.
that's true, that's true. So we have a motion to go with option number 1. All in favor? Against? Okay, we will go with option 1. That was a 3-2 vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Brownstein. We will look for further reports from you in the future with your matching tie, yes.
Well, the tide next time for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Chair, when this comes before us and we agreed to apply for the grant, we agreed to apply for it, and if it got passed, then we were committing to it. And I feel bad about voting against it, but it just, once I seen on here, it's a lot larger, and I think that basically when we do that next time, we have to relook when we're doing the planning, if we're gonna apply for these grants, and we're saying we're gonna apply for 700,000 to get it, we are committed to the 2.5 million. understood that good enough when we were going through that process, so.
Yep.
Just a comment.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now move on to the boundary extension. That would be Ms. McKay.
Thank you, Mayor McCordup. Mine seem relatively easy to get rid of. So, this report I'm bringing forward to you today is in large part to provide an update to you all because it's been some time since we've discussed boundary extensions. So council will recall way back, ironically, 2 years less 2 days ago, on April 15th, 2019, council passed a motion that town of Suze proceed with proposed boundary expansions for properties on Lakeshore Drive and on 87th Street. So the noted legal descriptions in your report identify 2 separate areas, and we're familiar with those areas, I'm sure. And there's also maps in your package which identify them for you to remember. So following the April 15, 2019 meeting of council, staff followed the provincial process for boundary extension. The complete boundary extension proposal requests, that's the packages, received through the referral process were then sent to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing on December 5th, 2019. So what happened before that December 5th, 2019 is we did our referrals out to community members, First Nations in the area. When I say community members, I mean the ones affected by the boundary extension proposals. We prepared all the technical documents. We then forwarded them to the ministry in December of 2019, and the ministry then advised us that we should consult further with First Nations. In fact, they asked us to expand that referral to First Nations well beyond our jurisdictional boundaries and even beyond those of the RUS. Which we then did so. We then reached out repeatedly to identify bands and nations with moderate success. In March of 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic, it led to a little slowdown in processing at the provincial level. And staff then received an administrative report finally from the province on February 23rd, 2021. The report contained errors relative to the legal descriptions and the associated maps, and that was with respect to the provincial report. Town staff identified these errors to the provincial staff, at which time the town staff were then directed to proceed with another follow-up to the residents within the proposed 87th Avenue boundary extension area because it had been some time elapsed, and they wanted us to determine their support. We received comments back from those staff. We proceeded, of course, with that referral process again, and now we're in receipt again of all the information to move forward. Now, under Section 12 Local Government Act, before Cabinet can consider a boundary extension, Council must give notice of the proposed extension in the BC Gazette. We also must obtain approval of electors of the municipality. So the province advised the town staff that the minister may choose to treat both of these proposals separately, and we agreed that that should probably be the case, given the fact that the Lakeshore Drive, all 3 property owners of Lakeshore Drive boundary extension area petitioned the town to come in, whereas it was only 1 property on 87th that petitioned the town to come in. So just so you know, there will be a separate report coming forward to council for approval of the alternative approval process. I'm not sure Mr. Chabot wants to speak to that in a moment, but the implications before council with respect to this report, the community of course benefits from the additional assessment that's added to the tax base. Should also note that the properties on 87th are also already receiving town water services. The small boundary extension projects are being considered again as part of the OCP process, currently underway, so we've already looked at that and what implications that would have for the OCP if we were to move forward. No impacts to the budget at this point. Following a resolution of council, staff would then prepare the notice for the BC Gazette and then prepare the AAP for boundary extension. That proposal requires another report to council. Again, community sustainability enhancement, municipal sewer and water services are available, and the options before council are option number 1, that council gives notice of the proposed extension in the BC Gazette and authorizes us to move forward with the AAP processes. Option 2, council passes a resolution not to proceed with the proposals. And option 3, council requests additional information. And staff are recommending option 1.
Thank you very much.
And
Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Did I hear it right? The government could actually pass some of them and not the others?
what they would do through the chair, the province might approve the Lakeshore Drive one, but not the 87. So they wouldn't partition out some of the parcels within a boundary extension proposal area.
Oh,
They would either pass all of that extension area or none of it.
oh, okay, so I was relating to 87th, I guess, where there's 4 smaller lots and
Yeah.
1 larger lot. They wouldn't pass the 4, it'd be all or none?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Your worship, just with respect to the recommended outcome, I think we got a little bit ahead of ourselves
Yes.
in terms of the process. We probably need to adjust our sails right here as we
Yeah.
freewheel through this. So the next steps, rather than publish notice in the Gazette and authorize staff to proceed with the alternative approval, is for staff to bring back to council a report that recommends that the alternative approval process be the process to gain the electorate consent for the 2 proposed boundary extension proposals. And we would run them as 2 separate alternate approval processes, because if some electors in the town thought one was a bad idea and the other one was okay,
Yeah.
we don't want to combine and
No.
confuse
Right.
the 2. And so the first step is for council to determine that they want to obtain the consent of the electors by alternative approval as an alternative to a full-blown municipal referendum. Then council needs to establish and confirm the number of electors to which the alternative approval process would be applicable. They have to approve the form for electors to submit in opposition to the boundary extension proposals for the alternative approval process, and establish the deadline by which those must be received. And after all that's done, then the notice goes in the Gazette, then the advertisements in the local paper happens,
Okay.
and we get on with it. So if council wants to pass a resolution today, it would be to bring back a further report recommending the means to proceed to have consideration of these boundary extension proposals by alternative approval.
Okay.
Are these A and B, sort of?
Yeah, we do 2 separate,
Yeah.
Are you
but you
moving
can do
that?
it together.
Yeah.
With the question.
Okay.
Do we have any problems with this with the ALR? Because a couple of those pieces of property are fortune, right?
Thank you, Councillor Bennett, through the chair. The ALC is only comments to us, well, of course, they always say the same thing. They say, we don't really care where you draw your municipal boundary, well, they care, but ultimately what they care about is maintaining land that's being used for farm purposes, to maintain it as farm purposes. So where we draw the boundary is particularly with respect to the Lakeshore Drive ones. They just want to make sure that those properties are maintained for agricultural purposes, which they are currently being used for.
Okay. So you're moving that we
Yeah,
go
whatever, Alan.
with
Yeah.
Alan's? Yes.
What else, Seth?
Are you seconding it, Councillor Rhodes? Okay, does anybody else have any? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Question for the, thank you, question for the CAO. I'm very familiar with the AAP process. We've done it a few times here, but who would participate in that? The entire,
The
Geographic
electors within the town of Vesuvius.
and the people that are losing the property, they would not participate?
No, the rural residents don't have a vote, and they don't have a right of veto over the need for municipal expansion.
That was gonna be my
Although
next
there's
question.
an obligation to consult and seek their views and to include that in the report that gets submitted to the province if, say, the alternative approval process was not sufficient to stop the council from proceeding. Council wanted to proceed, then the request to the province for cabinet to approve your boundary extension would include the comments of those people who were consulted, who are outside the boundary.
Because they would be losing taxation revenue to us, correct?
Well, the RDOS would, but they would lose the
But-
responsibility to service those properties as well. And we would usually acquire responsibility for any rural roads.
Did you, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. With respect to the RDOS comments that we received through the referral process, the RDOS was supportive of both proposed boundary extension areas. In fact, they suggested that we might want to go further on 87th at this time than just for those properties in question. So they were supportive of it. They felt that the size of the parcels on 87th bore to the fact that they should really be included within the urban area. And with respect to Lakeshore Drive, they understood the continuity that we were trying to work towards there, so.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we go with the option that Mr. Chabot came up with about another report on the AAP, and before we do anything with the BC Gazette. So are we okay with that? Is everybody in favor? Against? No, we're okay, thank you. Excuse me, Councillor Harvey? No?
Sorry?
Who's seconded?
I don't know if anybody yet.
It was Councillor
you.
Rhodes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Councillor Harvey indicated, I believe, you're in favor.
Are you in
Yes,
favor?
that's correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to say thank you to CEO Chabot.
We got a lot of work to do on
for-
this still, your worship.
Yeah, we do have a lot of work, and it was maybe a bit premature and a bit hot out of the gate there, but I just
Yeah.
really looking forward to moving that off my desk.
We've been waiting for this for a long time, and
We've been waiting.
We're getting close.
at UBCM, we even met with all of the ministers and all that kind of stuff to try and push it forward, and it's taken until now, and I think, and that was before, with Barry. Barry was, Mr. Romanko was, and so it's been longer than 2019, I think, that we've been dealing with it.
It has, in
Yeah.
fact.
All right, so we'll go on to one, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you. Is there a part B?
No, that applies
that
to
was
both of the
both.
boundary extensions.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I could ask, we received quite a comprehensive petition from a number of residents in that area, kind of cascading up in the irrigation district. Why would that not have been included in this?
Your worship, I saw recently the Minister of Municipal Affairs approved an $80,000 grant for a municipal incorporation study for Okanagan Falls. And it caused me to think, well, why wouldn't you give the town of Osoyoos a restructure grant as well to look at the implications and the opportunities of extending the municipal boundary, of catching the majority of urban type parcels on the east side of the lake. And I think that's something that we should do, and maybe you could bring it up in one of the monthly calls with the minister. Because they got money for OK Falls. I mean, we keep allowing urban development in the rural area semi-serviced. I think we could do better.
Just not a,
But it's a study would be required, I think.
yeah, if I could just make one more comment regarding that. There are a number of residents up there that feel we have ignored the petition because it's several years old now. We have really, in essence, not really moved forward with it at all, or even actually even commented publicly on it. So, this, to me, would have been a natural, well, maybe not a natural fit, but it would have fit pretty good.
Yeah, you do a lot more service analysis, servicing costs, a lot more scenario, a lot more financial analysis. I mean, 3 parcels comprising a winery is a lot different than 50, 60 homes or whatever it is out there.
Who all think we should be putting in sidewalks, sewers, and
Yeah.
streetlights tomorrow.
In their own police
Yeah.
force, but that, just out of respect to the petition that we got, my point is that we have really done nothing about it, and, you know, it's not that it's a high priority thing, but, I think there was 84 residents, and I think 64 of them are on
Yeah, I don't think the town can continue to ignore that growth and development on this boundary for very much longer. It really needs to be addressed.
thank you, that's what
Definitely.
that's where I was heading with that.
So maybe what we need to do is then send a letter to Minister Osborne and say, here's, you know, because she doesn't know about it.
Oh.
And so if she would, I'm sure, take a good look at it if we had sent her something.
For sure.
So maybe that would be the next step to this.
Because they have sewer and water issues like ones
Oh, do they?
you know,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of thing.
Can I get a note of that? Well,
Could,
Yes.
Put it right
could
out.
we ask for you to look at that, please?
Yeah, okay.
Did you need that as a motion?
No,
or-
I'll make it an action item.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Okay. All right. Ms. McKay, development variant permit, 39 Harbour Key Drive.
Thank you, Mayor McCordock. So, the department is in receipt of an application for a development variance permit. We're calling it development variance permit 21-01, first one of this year. So Tori and Beverly Doyle, who live at 39 Harbour Key Drive, are seeking a variance to the zoning bylaw to reduce section 8.2.2.1 by reducing the rear yard setback from 6 meters to 4 meters to allow for an exterior patio with a roof structure and possibly something that would be enclosed over time, which is why we require a variance. So they've been very forthcoming with their proposal, and they submitted a very complete application. The subject property is rectangular in shape, as shown on page 2 of my report to council. It has flat topography. In the rear, the subject property is long and narrow, as pictured in the aerial photograph. Section 8.2.2.1 states the rear lot line setback shall be 6 meters. Therefore, a variance is required in order to allow for the construction of the patio structure. The applicant has actually provided the department with letters of support from all of their neighboring property owners. So that is something that we ask people to do, and sometimes they do it. So staff does support the requested variance, of course, subject to input from the neighbors in the area. And the proposed new patio and roof structure will not be visible from the roadway and does not cause visual obstruction for the neighbors. It's just a single-story home and a single-story addition. With respect to the community, in accordance with council policy on considering development variance permits, council shall provide opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments. Organizationally, task for our staff would be to monitor the building permit application to ensure the development variance permit does not lapse and that the building permit aligns with the approved variance, budget, no impacts to the variance. Now, if council accepts the application and authorizes issuance of the notices, staff would then proceed with mailing out and hand delivery of the notices within 60 meters of the property. Sustainability, construction of the accessory building and the addition does not result in any adverse impacts to the natural environment, of course. And options before council, option number 1 in 2 parts. That council approves the application for development variance permit 21-01, and B, that council authorizes staff to proceed with the notification process, which advises of council's intention to consider issuance of the development permit at their next meeting on April 27th, 2021. Or option 2, that council denies the application. Staff are recommending option 1. Thank you, Mayor McCordock.
Thank you very much. Does that have to be
They
in
can
2
go in
parts?
one or
It
two.
can be
Yeah.
in 1, okay. Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mayor McCordock. I'll move the staff recommended option number 1.
Thank you. Councillor King is seconding that. Any other concerns? Looks like these guys have done this very carefully, so, and it's not going to be a problem with the neighbors, so that's a good thing. All right, so all in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. McKay. And now we are on to the Wine Country Racing Association, and that would be Mrs. Hilson.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find my report. Wine Country Racing has been using the Soyuz Airport since 2006 for drag racing events. Wine Country Racing is a non-profit society whose main goal is to provide a safe, back-to-the-basics outlet for those with a need for speed. WCRA was established in 2002 and is a volunteer-run organization. Typically, they host 5 racing events during 5 established weekends from May to September, using the weekend in October as a potential date if the races have to be canceled due to rain. The town requires WCRA to provide the town 48 hours notice prior to any activities taking place to ensure that a NODAM is placed on the airport. Wine Country Racing is also responsible for the cleanup of the lands after each event and pays the town 33% share of net ticket sales and participant fees. Wine Country Racing did not host racing events in 2020 due to COVID. If the public health officer relaxes restrictions around gatherings and events, Wine Country Racing would like to proceed with racing in 2021. The Wine Country Racing is requesting the following dates below for racing weekends for 2021. May 15th to 16th, June 5th to 6th, June 19th to 20th, September 11th to the 12th, September 25th to 26th, and October 2nd and 3rd as the rain dates. Implications to the community: increased visitors to the community during the racing events. This is a potential for the noise to impact the neighbors surrounding the airport. Organizationally, placing the NOTAMs on the airport and monitoring the lands and agreement. Budget: the town receives 33% shares of net ticket sales and participant fees. Significant dates: before May 15th for the first racing weekend, as long as the public health officers restrictions on events and gatherings is not in place. And options before council is that council approve the license to use for the Suez Airport to the Wine Country Racing Association for 2021, and town signatories be authorized to sign the agreement. 2, that council directs staff not to make changes to the agreement. And 3, that council does not approve the license to use agreement with Wine Country Racing. Recommendations: staff is recommending option 1, to approve the license to use to the Suez Airport with Wine Country Racing, as long as there are no public health orders preventing events and gatherings.
Thank you. When I look through the contract, unless I've missed something, I don't see the mention of the public health orders
We
preventing.
did put it in because they would have to comply with it because it is a provincial order. So they're fully aware. I've talked to, I believe it's Gary Dell.
Gary Dell?
Yeah, who's my contact, and so he's aware that they can't host the events if there's, otherwise they'd be going against public health.
Yes, my only concern was that I wondered if it should be included in the motion, but Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Member Cardiff. I'll move option number 1.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Bennett? Go ahead.
Just a question, Leanne, regarding the insurance part on it, because on here we have, they have to buy by April 15th, it says 2020 in the agreement, but they don't want to, they're not going to put out that amount of money if they don't know they can race. There's a way we can move that.
So it should be 2021, I'll fix that.
Because I imagine their premiums a few $1,000s.
And the council approved the agreement for them last year, but they never did send us back an executed copy
No.
because of COVID, and I expect they didn't buy the insurance either.
Okay, just as long as they're not gonna.
And who knows, they may let some of their scheduled race dates pass by before they send us an executed copy and buy insurance. When they see that there's a green light, they might proceed, but it seems somewhat unlikely to us, but they asked anyways, and
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
part of our community, so.
So we're okay with that, and are you seconding that, the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the motion? All right, so it's been agreed that we go with option number 1. All in favor? Thank you very much, that's carried. Next is the general net payroll and Sun Bowl Arena financial accounts. And this is to report on expenditures from accounts payable and payroll information as of April the 13th, 2021. Representing balances in the following funds: general cash requirements of $532,066.29, Sun Bowl cash requirements of $5,085.77, and net payroll accounts of $86,645.99. So the options are to receive those as printed, And option 2 is to request additional information. Could we have a motion on this, please? Thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you very much. And we have on the next page, we have a summary of the building permits. And we see that for the month, we have an estimated value of 1.183 million. Total to date in 2021 of 5,027,000, and which is double what the total to date from last year of 2,000,034. So it looks like people are doing garages and in some interior alterations, a deck, and 2 single-family dwellings. So I know that there are people that are pretty busy. Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Not to, I'm just going to repeat exactly what you said. It's very, very important to see that our numbers this year are over double what they were last year. And I know I say this every month when we get this report. These reports, or at least the numbers in there, are a good indicator, an excellent barometer for our economy and our community. And these are real dollars. They're not fake or made up, or these are dollars that are getting spent in our community. And when you have a big ticket item like 5 million and a few extra dollars top of that, that's a big item to pay attention to in our community. And it's just good news all around. And just another little tickler, I understand that there's some big ticket items that are coming on there real soon that are going to modify that amount immensely upwards.
Okay, good, thank you. Did we voted on that? We're all set? Do we
No,
need,
you
no,
didn't vote on
we
it. There's
need
not a
a
motion.
motion that the building permit report be received. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. And now we have several bylaws that we're looking at being adopted. And there are not reports to all of these, so I'm just going to go through each one. First one is the museum parcel tax amendment bylaw, and we're considering that for adoption. At this point, we've already gone through first, second, and third readings. If there's someone who would like to move the adoption of the museum parcel tax, thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you. Next one is the Lacey Point Sewer System 1158-2000, and that would be the same thing. Agreed a first, second, and third time.
Oh, sorry, no,
That's wrong.
no,
We're
Yeah, we're adopting it.
yeah. this
we're
one's
just
good enough.
we're adopting this one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the Lacey Point. First Lacey Point 1158.05. Correct?
Yeah.
All right, so we need a motion, please, to adopt that one. Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor? Thank you. Next one is the other Lacey Point water system 1156.02. We need a motion to adopt that one as well. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Harvey, all in favor? Or are you allowed to vote on this one, Councillor Harvey? It's down your way, isn't it? Are you okay with that?
Mrs. Hilton and I looked at that when I was signing a few weeks ago, and it doesn't affect me. This property paid out 20 years ago,
Okay.
so it's not.
Right, and this is the final payment on these Lacey
Yes.
Point ones,
Yeah.
so there won't be back on this list next year. All right, next one is the Sunnyvale Water System Parcel Tax. Same thing, we're adopting this bylaw as well. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor? Thank you. And next, Miss McKay, you're up again.
But I
This
don't
would-
have
Oh,
a
no, this
report.
is just for adoption, this is the, zoning
Oh, the zoning,
amendment
sorry,
for-
sorry, I missed one. The bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw, which is the permitted use under M1, zoning is now outdoor recreation, right?
Is added to it, yeah.
Yes, added to it, yes. So Councillor Bennett, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you very much. All right, now, we are on to the,
I'm to McKay again.
oh,
Can
You
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 just,
need to state why,
yes, could you
Councilor
step,
Bennett,
What's that?
you need to state why you're stepping out on
Oh.
this, just in general terms.
Because I have a summer home and a mobile RV park.
For the C5 part, yep, okay.
thank you very much. So we are going to ask Ms. McKay to
Okay,
present
we're done.
this report.
So thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So, I will preface just by saying, just bear in mind that we will be doing a full zoning bylaw review very quickly. So, the background on this particular, report, first off, it should be entitled recreational vehicle definition, not park model definition, so I apologize. The Town of Vesuvius zoning bylaw 1085 was first adopted in 1998. Since that time, there have been several changes in provincial legislation and policy which are not reflected in the current bylaw. Zoning bylaw reviews are usually preceded by an OCP review or update, and of course, recognizing this, the town is currently in the process of preparing a new OCP, following which the zoning bylaw will be the subject of a complete review and update. The Planning and Development Department continues to receive inquiries about the placement of park models on properties within the recreational vehicle campground zone, that is the C5 zone. The C5 zone was intended to accommodate recreation vehicle parks and campgrounds. The zone was not intended to provide for year-round accommodation or the placement of permanent or semi-permanent units on individual RV sites. So just to refresh your memory, the definition from the zoning bylaw illustrates this point. Recreational vehicle park means a parcel of land designated, developed, maintained, and capable of providing accommodation on a temporary or seasonal basis for recreational vehicles. So in a review of our definition of recreational vehicle, which is also included in the report, we note that park models are not mentioned. I will now read the definition of recreational vehicle, which means a vehicle capable of being used as a temporary accommodation for travel or recreation purposes, including motorhome, truck, camper, fifth wheel trailer, camper trailer, or tent trailer. So, although not specifically identified, the intent was to exclude park models due to the fact that once they are placed on a site, it renders the site unavailable for use by any other recreational vehicle. Specifically, park models are designed for long-term or permanent placement at a destination by virtue of the fact that it's necessary for them to be connected to utilities such as water, sewer, electrical hookups, etc., in order to operate or function. Staff are also having difficulty regulating the siting and addressing the inappropriate separation between units. In some cases, park models have now been added onto with decks and additions such that there remains very little space for parking on individual RV sites. This results in difficulty for emergency vehicles to access the area and could be disastrous should fire break out one of these parks. The ongoing placement of park malls in the town's RV parks and campgrounds continues to eliminate the remaining camping areas that had previously been available for visitors to our community. Most recently, we've determined that in some cases, site owners have now applied for the BC Homeowners Grant. The grant reduces the amount of property tax you pay for your principal residence. It was not intended to be applied to commercially zoned properties designed for temporary recreational accommodation. So next steps here are staff are recommending amendment to the zoning bylaw replacing the definition of recreational vehicle with the following new definition. That is to say, recreational vehicle, or RV, means any vehicle, trailer, coach, structure, or conveyance permanently fitted with wheels designed to travel or to be transported on a highway and equipped to be used for recreational living and sleeping purposes without requiring continuous connection to sewage, water, and electric hookups, and specifically excludes park malls in accordance with the CSA Z241 standards and tiny homes. The issue will be further reviewed during the upcoming development of our zoning bylaw, at which time we'll be able to address this issue in collaborative or consistent manner. And we'd also consider options related to the placement of park malls and associated decks, as well as emergency vehicle service access requirements. So, you know, in fact, when we do update the zoning bylaw, we may look at different zones for different park, existing campground or recreational park sites right now. So it's gonna be a full discussion when it comes around time. It might even be that we look at RV park bylaw, which is something that other communities do. So, there could be other additional regulations within the zoning bylaw, but it needs to be looked at in a comprehensive manner, and it has not, something that's evolved over time, and I think we recognize that it has now come to a head, I think. Implications for the community, of course, consistent, clear, and effective regulations are the cornerstone of transparent governance and overall community health. Organizationally, staff in the Planning Development Department benefit from having clearly identified objections and direction in the bylaws they refer to on a daily basis. With respect to the budget, the proposed update outlined here does not have any implications to the budget. Significant dates, notices would be placed in 2 consecutive papers to property owners. No, notices to property owners would not be issued because that falls under section 466 of the Local Government Act. When a zoning amendment applies to 10 or more parcels, you do not need to notify them individually. Sustainability, the long-term sustainability of our community and the surrounding area is achieved through good planning practices that are proactive rather than reactive. So, of course, the options before council are option 1. Council grants first and second reading to zoning bylaw amendment number 1085.134, and B, council advises staff proceed with the notification of the public hearing in the local newspaper. Option 2, council denies the proposed zoning and directs that the bylaw be abandoned. And option 3, council requests additional information before proceeding. And staff are recommending option 1.
Thank you very much. Councillor King?
Question, if this moves forward and gets passed with the park models that are already in some of these places, do they get grandfathered in, or what happens to them?
It's a very good question, Councillor King, through the mayor. I was hoping somebody would ask this. So what in fact would happen is for park models that were placed in position with a building permit, they would be grandfathered. Park models that were placed in position without a building permit would be considered unlawful or non-conforming. And the importance of that is that you've always required a building permit to put a park model in a park in our community. So if you have done so without one, then that was contrary to our building bylaw.
Okay, so what about, say, a fifth wheel that ends up putting a big porch attached to it? Did he need a permit to put that porch up?
Yes, and you're not allowed to attach a porch to a,
Well, you just stand beside it, it's not attached, but it looks attached. So. And I guess my last question, do you have a record of all the people that have applied up in mainly the 2 big RVs on Lakeshore?
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, I'm not sure I
Well,
understand
if
that.
you said they had to have a building permit to put the park.
Thank you, Councillor King, yes, through the chair, most certainly. We have a record of all of those permits that were issued.
So you feel that some aren't in compliance, really?
I feel that quite a few are in compliance.
Okay, that's okay.
That, with the issuing of the permit for the park mall to be located, I feel that many of them got a building permit, but some of them have been added on to without a building permit.
Councillor Rhodes and then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor McCorduck. Well, I applaud your self-control. So this agenda came out on Friday. By Saturday at noon, 6 phone calls already about it. I know you're not underestimating, trying to be diplomatic about it. There are literally dozens and dozens of violators in our community. And those are just the ones that I know of personally. I can't imagine what Councillor Bennett is going to go through because he's fully engaged and lives in that environment. We need to have, not today of course, but we need to have a discussion about enforcement. That's going to be ultimately our biggest challenge with this. We can identify and figure everything out, but what the heck are we going to do about it? And legal non-conforming, is that the right term?
Correct.
Rather than
Sort of.
grandfathering, is something that we really have to stick with that
Right.
term because it is very, very meaningful.
Right.
Because that's how we will probably end up doing the enforcement part of it. If we think that we're gonna go into these RV parks and start kicking people out and hooking up tow trucks to them and pulling them out of there, that's never gonna happen.
No,
But I do applaud you moving forward with this. This is a highly controversial issue, and there are militant people, so thank you for bringing this forward. But my words are caution about enforcement and how we move forward with that.
and if I may, Mayor McCordoff, I mean, the intent was not to suddenly launch into an enforcement program or anything like that. I mean, more so than anything, is just to bring forward the challenge that the department faces. And at some point along the lines, it was the interpretation of the building inspectors that a park model was considered a recreational vehicle. Therefore, it fit into that category, whereas the intent of the zoning bylaw was not to allow for ongoing permanent location. So that's the position of the planner. And I'm not sure if CO Chabot has a comment on that.
Your worship, what we're trying to do is make solid the town's refusal to issue permits for any more of these models, because the problem's only growing worse,
Yes.
and we need to fix this problem. I think there is some question of law whether the town could ever have properly issued the permits for those that we're gonna consider lawful non-conforming.
Right.
That might have been done in error as well, but because of some ambiguity in the definition of what a recreational vehicle is, it plainly wasn't intended to mean a park model. Council's intention was for this to be campground and have seasonal use and community and economic vitality. So, yeah, you're right, the enforcement and the concern this is gonna raise for people that have one pre-existing is very real. Yeah, we get that.
Councillor Harvey, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it's really in the weeds perhaps, but I noticed in the proposed new definition, reference to park models in accordance with CSA Z241 standards, and then tiny homes with no standards, no definition, no qualifications whatsoever. It seems to me that we're going to be in the same situation in sometime in the future with tiny homes as we are today with park models, without some more specificity.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy. So I can speak to that because I did in fact have that conversation with our lawyer. And the fact that we do not currently allow tiny homes in any zone allows us to exclude them right now in this definition. But in the future, we would definitely, in our new zoning bylaw, we will include a definition of tiny homes, and we may in fact allow tiny homes in some areas. The trick with tiny homes, and many people don't recognize this because we all watch those HGTV programs, I know I do, is that everyone's always building these tiny homes and locating them all over the place. And in fact, they do not meet building code requirements. So just like a park model does not meet building code requirements to be a permanent residence, a tiny home is not a residence either. So it is definitely going to be a challenge, but I thank you for the opportunity to speak to that.
So just before we take the vote, I just wanted to say that I absolutely appreciate the fact that that we're going to have a look at a zoning bylaw where we will deal with all of these things. And so I'm totally in favor of that. And the biggest problem that I see is, because some people have phoned me, although not this weekend, so Councillor Rhodes got those ones, is that if there was an outbreak, a fire, an ambulance needed to get in there, it's going to be a disaster. So I really think that in terms of looking at next steps, that we need to not only look at what the wrecked vehicle looks like, but we need to look at how we can make our zoning bylaw sensible and fair, and look particularly at emergencies that could occur in these places. So, did you have something?
No, I'll move option one. You need them separate or together?
Separate.
Separate, so
1A.
1A. So
First and
that would
second
be
reading.
first and second reading to the zoning amendment. Councillor Rhodes is seconding that. Anything else? All in favor? Thank you very much. Could we have someone move option 1B? Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Harvey, that the notification of the public hearing go into a local newspaper. So, all in favor? Okay, Councillor, okay, thank you very much, that's carried. Thank you, Mr. McKay. You've been busy today, don't forget to take that black binder there that I brought back for you because I already have one of those, so that's your copy.
Oh, okay.
Now, are you on again?
I am again, and I'm,
Or,
thank you,
okay.
Mayor McCarthy. I'm
Meadowlark.
hoping this is a real good news story. 'Cause
36 pages.
it's been a labor of love for all of us. And I've worked on this application, believe me, because it's been over a year since Mr. Buckendall made this application before council. So this report is report number 4 for Meadowlark Phase 2. OCP Amendment 1230.25 and zoning bylaw amendment 1085.127. The owner is Cherry Lake Enterprises, the applicant is Mr. Hart Buckendall, and of course this is phase 2 of the Meadowlark plan area. The proposed amendments, if adopted, will allow phase 2 to move forward, and I'm just going to launch right in here. So the purpose is request that council consider fourth reading of both the OCP bylaw amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, and also requesting that the Director of Planning and Development be authorized to issue development variance permit 20-02. I would like to note one thing right now, though, is that in a review of the attachments to the development permit, I note that the lot numbers of certain types of units are identified on there. That would be taken off because the lot numbers have changed repeatedly. So the intent is to have the option for these different homes to be located on different lots depending on the topography, etc. once they get in there and do a little bit more site work. So the subject property is within the southeast Meadowlark plan area. It abuts the north end of Kettle Pond, and the developable portion of the property is approximately 1.2 hectares. Conservation covenant will be registered in the foreshore area of the pond to protect the habitat of the species that live in the area, and the pond itself will be dedicated to the town as park and preserved as natural habitat. The development consists of a mix of residential uses. A total of 26 residential lots are included in the draft plan of subdivision attached to your report. One lot has been identified as a possible future park. Details on park dedication will be discussed in a future report to council. The draft plan of subdivision indicates a variety of lot sizes, which will support a mix of single-family homes with suites, and rancher-style homes and duplexes. So, zoning bylaw. Implementation of the Southeast Meadowlark plan was contingent on including an intensive residential development zone within the town's zoning bylaw. The IRD zone was designed specifically to meet the vision of the plan by allowing for a mix of residential uses. As such, the IRD zone allows for a variety of housing forms: small at single detached housing, two-family duplexes, low-rise apartments, etc. The location of the housing forms within each development was intended to be further defined as part of the subdivision process. Again, to that end, the draft plan does not specify the uses for each lot. Although I will make one caveat to that, but we'll get to that in a second. The Southeast Meadowlark plans were identified in the OCP as a potential future growth area which could become available for development with Agricultural Land Commission approval. The Commission recognized that area has been cut up by scattered development and no longer offers good potential for agriculture. However, the Commission required a plan to be submitted for their review, which establishes a broad range of suitable land uses, including a mix of housing forms and tenures. The road patterns and edge planning guidelines also for the west, south, and north areas that are still within the ALR. The plan was prepared in response to the Commission's need to guide future development of the area. The Commission endorsed the plan in 2010, and it was used to support the town's successful application for approval in principle from the Commission to release the AR lands over time. Phase 2 proposal was submitted to the ALC following third reading of the amending bylaws. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of how long it sat at the Commission for. No disrespect to the commission, they're just as busy as the rest of us. So, in order to meet the minimum densities as per the Meadowlark plan, the development proposal must achieve a density of at least 30 units per hectare. With the developable area 1.2 hectares, the proposal will be required to provide 36 residential units. And in the table here, I demonstrate that there's 37 units, but we'll ensure that there are at least 36. So now let's talk about the agricultural land reserve designation. So in October 2010, the commission approved the exclusion of the area in the southeast Meadowlark plan from the ALR as a staged approach. They weren't prepared to exclude the land outright because they were concerned that the medium density requirements identified in the plan would not be followed through with. So they agreed to support it on an as-needed basis. So the town, of course, received approval in principle, and we've continued on with their process, and I outlined that in my report to you dated March 2nd, 2020, so over a year ago. So with respect to parkland dedication, now the first phase of Meadowlark plan, this is very important I feel, was actually developed by the town. At the time of subdivision, it was determined that a neighborhood park would be developed on lot 27, and that is shown on attachment number 4 of this report. The park area set aside by the town is located adjacent to Red Drive and sloped towards the west and provides limited space for an actual playground or actual playground equipment. So to that end, staff and the developer for phase 2 worked together to reconfigure the original draft plan of subdivision for phase 2 to identify an area that could be utilized as a future park. And again, that's identified on attachment 4. Detailed information on the process to secure this park use will be brought forward in a separate item on a future council agenda. Now, it's important here to note that zoning of the parcel as intensive residential at this time does not affect any future dedication of the parcel as parkland, because that is a function of the subdivision approval process. Development permit 20-02, of course, this depicts the variety of housing forms to be included in phase 2. The neighborhood will be made up of single-family homes with walkout basements, single-family homes with suites, rancher-style homes, and duplexes. The specific location of each of these styles of homes within phase 2 will be determined based on demand and site-specific details such as lot grading and natural slope of the parent parcel. So the development permit includes 2 streetscape drawings which depict the look and feel of the neighborhood, and also shows the design of the varied housing forms, and it includes a combination of color schemes and trim options to ensure there are variations throughout the subdivision. And then I note where the proposed development and the guidelines meets the guidelines of the OCP, including the diversity of housing types, the innovative mix of intensive residential development, the step-back building forms, and the pitches of the roof. So what I will tell you is that in development permit 20-02, I did specifically identify that the 2 lots that would be adjacent to the park can only be built with rancher-style homes. The point of that is to not provide, to make sure that there isn't some bigger homes that kind of block the view into the park from the neighboring houses or from the streets. It's a safety issue, and in discussions with the developer for phase 3, the home that would back onto the park from phase 3 at Meadowlark is also going to be a rancher home. So, subdivision approval requirements. So as per the Meadowlark plan, at least 15% of the total number of residential units within each of the phases must be entered into the near market housing affordability program. So the time of subdivision approval, the developer will be required to register the housing agreement on title of the homes that need to be entered into the program. And council recall that it's a 5-year program. The owners of those homes cannot sell the homes for 5 years at market value, and after which they can. So now let's talk about the Agricultural Land Commission and what they're asking for. So the Executive Committee at the ALC granted approval for the proposal subject to specific conditions. I want to note here that once the commission reviews the proposal and they grant approval, they actually have 60 days to retract that approval. So it's quite interesting, and that also led to further delays because we were, of course, reluctant to make any changes to the plan to address the concerns of the ALC, because if we made those and then during that 60 days they changed their mind, we might have to go back. So that delayed the process a little bit longer. So the following conditions of the ALC will be secured at the time of subdivision. The first one is construction of a solid wood fence either along the ALR boundary of the property on the west side of Meadowlark Drive or along the western boundary of the new lots abutting Meadowlark Drive. The planting of a minimum 3-meter wide vegetative buffer along the properties on the east side of Meadowlark Drive. And that would also have to be registered by covenant, that the property owners, people that purchase those properties, are responsible for maintaining that agricultural buffer. Also, a registration of a covenant on those properties, acknowledging that they're adjacent to agricultural uses. That means that they're aware that there might be smells or sound or whatnot coming from the agriculture. I mean, it was interesting to me because, of course, most of our community is abutted by agricultural lands and uses, so I'm always a little bit taken aback when they continue to make this request, but nevertheless, here we are. The other request is that there must be a 23-meter setback from the ALR boundary on the west side of Meadowlark to the new homes in Phase 2. And that is to be secured through the development permit process. So, of course, it's the responsibility of the approving officer for the town of Suez to ensure that all of those conditions are met. So that's my responsibility. Now, protection of the natural environment. There's a little error in this one sentence, I'll note that. The area of the Kettle Pond, again shown as part dedication on attachment 4, will be preserved for its contribution to habitat retention. And a condition of final approval of the subdivision will be the receipt of a letter of undertaking from the applicant's legal counsel, which identifies and outlines the conditions of subdivision approval. And that includes all of the documents we just spoke of, the covenants, the development requirements of the agricultural land reserve with respect to the covenants and the solid wood fence, etc., the conservation covenant, and the registration of housing agreement. So once the zoning and the OCP amendments are approved, I then prepare my preliminary layout review letter of the subdivision proposal. I identify all of the documents that need to be submitted, including all the covenants that must be prepared by legal counsel for the applicant, and a letter of undertaking from the applicant's legal counsel that they'll register those all the time subdivision. Compliance, of course, with the subdivision development servicing bylaw is also required, and our town's engineer and the director of operations are currently working with the applicant's engineer on those drawings. Staff are in support of the proposed development, which is considered as implementation of Phase 2 of the Meadowlark Plan. The plan itself had extensive community review and has been designed to help address community housing needs by providing a variety of housing forms and tenures within a limited land base. Proposed Phase 2 meets the guidelines of the plan by contributing to near market housing stock, and of course the new rental suites provide much needed housing to those in need of our community. Wow. The community benefits, of course, from additional housing units being provided. The development proposal package was referred up to the outside agencies, Ministry of Transportation, of course, Fortis BC, TELUS, etc. for comment. No comments have been raised, or no concerns have been raised to date. ALC comments, of course, were discussed, and of course, MOT already approved the bylaw. And then no impact to our budget as associated with this report or with the approval of this development at this time. Future consideration may be given to improving road access along 74th Avenue in the future, and we'll discuss that with Phase 3. This item, of course, will be brought forward to future council agenda to discuss the possible parkland dedication. The proposal helps address community sustainability goals by providing additional housing in a variety of housing forms. And I also note here by preserving the natural habitat of the Kettle Pond, which was an issue that was brought up during the public hearing. Options before council, 1 in 3 parts. 1A, council resolves to adopt OCP plan amendment bylaw number 1230.25. B, council resolves to adopt zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.127. C, council authorizes issuance of development permit 20-02. Option 2, council requests additional information before proceeding. Or option 3, council defeats the bylaw at 3rd reading. And staff are recommending option number 1.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. This is a lot of work. but the developer is not in town yet. Does that make a difference? You're just getting things organized to get
There's
this
been
deal
a lot of
done?
emails and some long distance phone calls on his behalf, but his partner has been stick handling things here.
Good.
And, I'm pretty happy that we're here today.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor King?
Number one, I gotta congratulate you, know the work you've been done to move this forward. I think it's great that we have new housing come forward. I have a couple of questions. The piece of property in phase one that was identified as a park, we own that piece of property?
We do.
So it's just gonna sit idle for now?
So if you look at, again, attachment number 4 in the report,
Yeah, I did look at
in an ideal situation, you see it would be added on to, the new park, and it would create a really great sizable piece of land that we can actually have something substantial on. And it's right in the middle, and I was actually going to include some pictures that I've taken when I've been over in the area of the number of kids that actually already play in the park that's marked parkland dedication on this attachment. There's a great dirt pile there, and they've had good, clean fun playing in that dirt pile as I did at that age myself.
On this drawing, which number is it, or what
It's
lot?
it's the area that isn't colored,
It's white.
There's a whole bunch of like.
Square
Park
one, it's just
dedication.
park dedication.
between 11 and 12,
Small stuff.
right?
So, is there a difference in elevation from the new park?
No,
dedication?
they actually, I encourage you to go over and have a look, and if
Okay.
you haven't already done so, it's actually perfect. Lot 27, which is town-owned property,
Yeah.
slopes gently towards the park dedication, and then this nice flat
Okay.
spot, and if we're gonna move forward with that park
Good.
dedication, we would see a really fantastic
Right,
area.
right, right. And my last question, you're talking about near-term affordable housing where the developer and possibly yourself come to an agreement on what you call near-term
The near market?
or near market, who really comes up with that number? Or how do you come up with that?
Well,
number?
we would do that with the CO, and this is the way it was done previously. So there are stipulations in the near market housing agreement where that number comes from.
So about 600,000 would be near market?
No, actually, it's based on a number below the market value. So that's why it's called the near market value. So it's usually between 10 and 15% below market value. So if it's a $600,000 home, it would be $540,000, which may not seem like very much of a savings to many people. However, there are financial institutions that are willing to take that $60,000 savings and apply that to the down payment.
And because it's the developer and it's not the town, we're not coming forward with a discount.
That's
financial.
correct. We're not out of pocket for anything. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Corliss. I'm assuming you want 3 different motions for this?
Yes.
I'll move staff recommend adoption 1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bennett? Well, you don't have your hands up, so I'm just gonna grab somebody. Okay, so Councillor King is seconding that.
You run out of cookies.
I baked for you this weekend, for heaven's sake. So that would be option number 1, moved and seconded, all in favor. Thank you very much. Is there somebody willing to move option 1B? Councillor Rhodes. Is there a seconder for 1B? Councillor Bennett. That they adopt the zoning amendment bylaw. All right, all in favor.
Who,
Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett.
thank you.
And the third, which isn't included in here, but Miss McKay has it there, that's okay? Mrs.
1C.
Yes, but not on my other thing, my.
Issuance of development permit.
Yes, so the issuance of a development permit 20-02. Councillor King, Councillor Harvey? Okay, all in favor. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Miss McKay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Don't you have to stay? Yes, you
Yeah,
have.
you
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
one
saying,
more to go.
I can't help but exhale.
Where to go, Jen?
I'll be
Yeah.
Yes.
back in a couple weeks to talk about the park.
No problem.
But for now,
Now
let's move on.
we're going to go on
Thanks,
to the
CJ.
business license bylaw and street food vendor policy. Adoption, maybe.
Yes.
Good.
So
Okay.
thank you again, and staff in the planning and building department are receiving a large number of inquiries regarding food truck vendor licenses, and as I noted earlier in my update at your committee of the whole meeting, we've now secured spots for 5 truck food vendors this summer. So again, this could be attributed in part to the current restrictions on outdoor and reduced inside capacity for existing restaurants, but the town is also implementing a downtown plaza this summer, within which we would like to include spaces for 2 food trucks. The current street food vendor policy allows only 1 vendor per block. Therefore, this section of the policy needs to be updated. Further updates to the PLA street food vendor selection policy and approval policy and to the relevant sections of the town's business license bylaw are being proposed in order to streamline the application process and ensure the policy is aligned with the bylaw. The proposed changes include clarifying where stationary food trucks versus food trailers may be located, amending the number of food trucks or food trailers permitted on public and private properties, and updating the approval process to align with the delegation of authority bylaw. Importantly, staff will continue to advise applicants that food offerings and proposed locations must not compete with the offerings of existing restaurants and food vendors, and we've been very particular about that. So the OCK emphasizes the importance of creating a diverse and vibrant downtown, and one way to achieve diversity and vibrancy is to enable a variety of food options. In order to ensure diversity of food offerings, revised policy will require that applicants outline for staff how they propose their food offerings will complement and not compete with the existing options in our downtown area specifically. The business license bylaw sets out requirements for food vendors, and the bylaw permits food vendors to operate on municipal or private land, subject to a series of provisions. Operators on private and municipal land are required to obtain the necessary permits as set out in the business license bylaw. And again, the zoning bylaw stipulates off-street parking provisions, and any private properties with food vendors must still meet the parking requirements. Now, the delegation of authority bylaw delegates the authority to the chief administrative officer and the director of planning and development services or another director to issue license of occupation agreements, and that would be for them to locate on town property. The town's street food vendor selection approval policy specifies that council must approve a license to use agreement. However, as noted above, that authority has actually been delegated to the CEO and another director. Town Center Renewal Plan. The Town Center Renewal Plan emphasizes the importance of protecting existing businesses in the downtown while enabling the establishment of complementary services. One of the strategies recommended by the Town Center Renewal Plan is to increase the number of food vendors in downtown as a means of increasing vibrancy in the area. And of course, community feedback during the Town Center Renewal Plan supported this recommendation. We also had a letter of support from one of our downtown businesses. So, proposed changes to the business license bylaw. Of course, this came forward for the first 3 readings. And of course, we do know that we need to do a complete refresh of the business license bylaw. But in the meantime, here we are, and we've recommended some changes, and basically now we need to also make some changes to the policy so that they're both aligned, okay? So, street food vendor selection approval policies PLA-16, and the rationale for those proposed changes are as follows. For clarity, the following definition from the business license bylaw will continue to apply, okay? So that is, a mobile street vendor means a business issued a license on an annual basis to operate a motorized vehicle or pedal-powered cart that operates by moving from client to client to sell food and non-alcoholic beverages, such as ice cream truck or coffee lunch or wagon, but does not set up on a premise. So that's important. That would be like your ice cream truck, etc. And then stationary street vendor means a business issued a license on an annual basis to operate a vehicle or trailer for the purpose of selling food or non-alcoholic beverages from an approved vending site. So we're also adding this new definition. You recall we discussed this when we brought forward the first, second, and third reading. Season means 4 consecutive months, okay? So the following sections provide an overview of the proposed changes to both the BLB, business license bylaw, and the food vendor policy. Again, you could also look at the attachment. So a summary of the proposed changes to the bylaw, which were outlined in the report dated March 9th. And I'm just gonna touch briefly on those key changes because they're relevant to the policy as well. Number 1, amending the bylaw to allow food trailers on private properties only as it's difficult for them to maneuver in the downtown area. You recall we discussed that last time, and we do have private property owners that are now working on agreements with food trailers. So that's good news, including one that was located downtown previously. Allowing free food trucks in the C1, C2, and C3 zones, and food trailers operating those zones but on private property is also a change. Removing the requirement for vendors to place notices in the newspaper, as that actually relates to the disposition of land only. I'm not sure how it got in there in the first place. And then amending the license fee so that vendors pay for a season in order to streamline the process and reduce administrative time and cost for staff. And our friends across the bridge have already paid for their season.
Can I just, while you're
Sure.
talking about that, because you mentioned the season's only 4 months, and I'm sure he's gonna be here 6 months, so he just pays for the extra 2 months?
So what happens is, and it's in the change, then for every additional month after their season, it's $150.
A month.
So we have, for example, another food truck that's ready to set up for the May long weekend. So they'll pay for the May long weekend at that point. We anticipate that they'll probably stay through September as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So now I'm gonna talk about the policy changes. So basically what we're doing is replacing vendors on municipal property must obtain a license of use from council with vendors must obtain a license of occupation from the CO and the director, which is in our bylaw 1292, 2019. And of course that streamlines the process for vendors and aligns with the delegation bylaw. Replace approved applicants must obtain the appropriate business license as set out in the bylaw. For applications which propose to locate municipal land, associated license to use fee must also be paid. The use of public parking stalls will require additional fees. With approved applicants must obtain the appropriate business license as set out in the bylaw. So what we've done is we've rolled the fee for the use of the space into the actual cost of the license, rather than having 2 separate fees. Fees have been updated in order to simplify again the administrative paperwork for the planning clerk. Updated categories also as follows: stationary, downtown, street vendor, off Main Street, 1 public parking space in downtown, to 2, so in other words you can have 2 per block. On private surface parking lots with a minimum 10 stalls in the C1 zone, we're allowing them to have 2. So for some of these parcels that are downtown, so say for example across from AG Foods, if they can demonstrate that they still have 10 parking spaces there, they can have 2 food trucks on that parcel.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned the length of food trucks or trailers on the streets, but you don't mention how big they can be on private property, so if they can be as big as ever?
They can be as big as ever, as long as they still have the parking stalls.
Okay.
And that was actually to accommodate some larger food
Yeah,
trailers that had wanted to come here.
I
And
did
we
say
did,
as much.
yeah, and there's just not room on the streets for
No,
them.
that's good.
So again, the rationale for recommendation is by revising the license quotas and locations available for potential food vendor operators and streamlining the process, staff expect more potential food vendors to follow through with their application. And the town center renewal plan encourages an increase in the number of food options. Staff recommending approval of the proposed changes to the business license bylaw and the PLA-16, subject to any comments or concerns that might have been received. We received none that I know of. Mrs. Hilson? No?
The one that was.
Just-
Oh, yes, there is the one that it's attached to
Yeah.
the.
One in support.
Package.
Yeah.
Implications for the community, residents and visitors potentially benefit from the diversity of food options. And of course, organizational staff will be required to review the food vendor applications, which we've been doing for a few months now. No cost to our budget associated with this report. It was advertised in the Times Chronicle on March 17th and March 24th. And sustainability, a vibrant community will aid in the town's economic sustainability. Options, number 1, that council grant final reading to business license amendment bylaw number 1045.37, and council approve the proposed amendments to PLA 16 street food vendor selection and approval policy as per section 6 of this report, and staff are recommending options 1 and 2. Additional options would be option 3, that staff provide additional information, or option 4, that no further action be taken. Thank you, and Gina's getting tired.
I guess you are. You've been doing lots of talking today. Thank you very much. Ms. McKay and I see that we've already got some of these, well, the donut truck is already there, and I'm sure there's others being ready to go.
Thank you, Mayor Corda.
So, Councillor King?
Yeah, I got one question with your license fee. If I'm reading this correctly, we used to charge them $350 a month, now we're charging them $1,000 for 4 months?
Correct,
So they're saving money,
yes.
plus they don't have to pay that extra $150, so.
They pay $1,000 plus $175 for the business license. So $1,000 is to locate for 4 months.
And
then-
150 was for the parking stall in the previous,
No, it's $175 for the license and $1,000 for the 4 months.
I'm only reading what you got on your paper
Yeah.
here. License is $350 a month, an additional fee for each parking stall,
That's what it was. That's
$150.
Yeah.
So that's $500, so 4 months would be $2,000, now we're only charging $1,000.
That's correct.
So what's the rationale?
We actually felt that that was a more reasonable amount to pay. We also felt that if we were gonna get people to pay up front, which was a better way for us to actually collect the fees, what was happening last year, we would issue the permit and they'd pay $500 and then they would never pay us again. And we've actually tried to go to collections with a couple of truck operators, and this way they come in, they give us $1,000 and $175 for the business license, and they're happy to pay it.
I would be happy for $2,000.
And it's been made significantly cheaper for food trailers on private property
That's correct.
as well.
Yeah, but the donut guy already saved $1,000.
What, are you gonna set up a trailer and make
No, the
cookies or
donut
what?
fellow was there.
Okay.
It was licensed last year compared to this year. Anyhow.
Full support.
It wasn't there today because I went.
No, no, he's still,
Weekends.
Yeah,
saved
Is that it?
$1,000.
being a donut addict, I needed to fix, and
Oh, sorry.
Okay, did you have your hand up, Councillor Rowe?
we're just gonna move staff recommended option number 1.
Staff recommended option 1. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bennett. Anything else?
I got one more question.
Yes?
I don't know if you could answer this question, but there's some ALR property in the town, and if a vendor put a trailer on them, I guess they gotta go through the RDOS. Do you know what their costs are, or what their
For
costs?
temporary use?
Yeah.
So, thank you, that's a very good question, Councillor King. Thanks so much for asking that.
Sure.
Actually,
Gonna find an answer somewhere.
there is a process
I'm sure
for,
there is.
for a non-agricultural use application. But it all depends, okay, so I'm gonna give you, throw a little bit of a mix in here, just because it's the end of the day.
I love it.
Why wouldn't I? Properties that are subdivided before 1972, December 21st actually of 1972, that are shown as agricultural land on the ALR mapping are actually don't need to comply with agricultural land regulations, which is a little known fact you probably didn't know. Probably never come up in a trivia game, but you know, it's good to know these things anyway. But it is good to know. And then there are, as I mentioned previously at Committee of the Whole this morning, there are properties that are identified as being within the agricultural land reserve, which is just a mapping that needs to be updated. So if it was a town that was zoned for commercial purposes and it's in the ALR, I would suspect that the Agricultural Land Commission would have no objection.
So I have a piece of agricultural land in the town. Do I have to buy a business license because I'm in the ALR?
Or what are you
Or-
operating?
No, it's not an ALR, it's just agricultural land.
What are you operating?
A food vendor, a food
Yes.
trader,
Yes.
and I'm not in the town.
Well, no, if you're outside the RDOS, no, you do not need a license.
All right.
The regional district doesn't issue.
Well, I guess I'm just relating, the new winery on Lakeshore Drive is actually in the ALR right now until it comes out. So a guy could put a trailer there theoretically, through the process.
In that particular case, the Agricultural Land Commission would want to see perhaps a non-ALR use.
That might have been an ALR before 1972,
It may have been.
and that might be okay.
Now, where did we get to?
I'm not sure.
I believe that I have Councillor Rhodes
There's a
making the
motion on the
motion.
floor.
And
And I think Councillor
Councillor
Bennett
Bennett
seconded
seconded
that.
that. This
That
is
was
for
on the
one,
business license, yeah.
yes,
Yes.
just the, this is the business license amended bylaw.
Yeah, to adopt it.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. She would also like somebody to deal with option number 2.
Yeah, I'll move number 2.
Councillor King, Councillor Harvey, you seconding that? Okay, that, as said, approve the proposed amendments to the selection and approval policy as per section 6 of this report. All in favor? Thank you very much. Ms. McKay, are you done today? No. maybe
Oh,
not.
I'm definitely done today. It's really getting tongue-tied at the end there, but I
No.
thank you all for your patience as we work through those.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor McCullough.
well, thank
Council.
you. That was a lot of things, a lot of different things for you to deal with and be able to answer at the top, you know,
Keep
off
that.
the hat. All right, now, no new business or notice of motion, so we have 2 reports. One is the Accessibility and Age Friendly Committee of March the 4th. And one is, Ms. McKay, are you taking that binder that I left there for you?
Thank you, Mayor
Thank you
McCullough.
very
Binders are not my forte today, as we've noticed.
Yes, we
But
did.
thank you for the
Thank you.
reminder.
And the Community Services Advisory Committee minutes of March the 16th. Now, it seems to me that Councillor King was at both these meetings. Do you have anything to?
Oh, I can make a comment now or wait for my report.
Well, go ahead, because we need to.
It would be the
okay
Age
these.
Friendly Accessibility Committee. To me, it was kind of exciting. We met at Haynes Point with BC Parks, representative from OIB, which happened to be Mike Campo, Mr. Davis, myself, Mike Stiles, to try to identify where a fishing dock could be put. They looked at 3 different locations. They come to consensus on one specifically. So as we move forward, Mr. Davis should be coming forward with some type of report, but there has to be some papers signed with OIB to start with. So that's kind of very exciting.
That is, that's great. So is there anybody have any questions about either of these reports? Okay, can we do them together? Can we accept them together? They have to be separate.
Nothing
Okay.
together.
We need a motion, please, that the 2 reports, Accessibility and Age Friendly Community Services, be received for information. Councillor King, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor. Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Chabot, after your week off, now have to give us a report and everything that went on.
Your worship, I'm tired after listening to all the meeting reports.
We all are.
Yeah, that was quite a load of work, that was pretty,
Yes.
Great job.
pretty nice to see all that stuff moving forward, so. Yeah, I did prepare a report regardless of taking 4 days off last week. It was nice to have a break. and,
Yes, I'm sure, well
enjoy some
deserved.
time away from this. There's a lot going on for a small town. A lot of what I've got on this report, council either dealt with today at this regular council meeting or heard about this morning from the fire department, the operational services department, or the planning and development services department. We gave committee of the whole an update, a quarterly update this morning, but I'll run through a couple of things. I helped with the evaluation of the proposals for the Marina operation that council awarded an agreement to operate the office there, and then boat rentals at commercial stalls, boat rentals out of a trailer that will be parked in a designated spot there as part of that. Participated in a regional emergency management exercise. Thankfully, the mayors were exempted from participation in that exercise. The Director of Community Services and I had another Zoom meeting with representatives of Desert Park Society regarding proposals around a renewed license of occupation with the Desert Park Society. We've got a further meeting we're trying to schedule with them for this coming Monday, trying to move that forward consistent with the direction from council. We met with a candidate for the fire chief position, waiting for him to return a signed employment agreement, after which we can announce the arrival of a new fire chief for our community soon. staff and I have been working through the capital project list and how we're going to complete it all. It's quite an ambitious list this year for small staff. So we're trying to make sure that we can deliver on council's identified priorities and capital projects. We had a Zoom meeting with the Director of Operational Services and the town's representative who's going to manage the Soyuz Child Care Center expansion project. So he sent us last week a bit of a project charter and an outline of how things will proceed. We're optimistic that we can deliver that project on time and in compliance with the commitments to the province to create new child care spaces for the community. Moving into community services, as council knows, the COVID-19 immunization clinic has been located now at the Sonora Community Center, no longer at Sagebrush Lodge. Current intention is to operate it 3 days a week, Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday, although the goalposts change constantly on this thing, timelines, locations, etc. So for the best information, people should probably go to the interiorhealth.ca website, identify the community that you're in, and determine when and where you can go get your shot, because like I say, it changes quite a bit. There's some completed washroom renovations and update to the weight room door from the exterior of the Sonora Center. While the commercial operations at the Marina will commence with the occupation of the office for the services there May 15th, the actual Marina is open to people with slips booked as of April the 1st, I'm told. We are running some fitness classes, they're full, and they're happening outdoors, limited enrollment and that, so there's no opportunity to enroll 100 people right now and stay in compliance with the health measures. And as just noted, there was a couple of community service advisory committee meetings in the last couple of weeks as well. Corporate services, other than mucking up the sound system in council. Been very busy with HR matters and things, meeting with BC Transit and discussing perhaps a little bit of stakeholder engagement around transit priorities and service levels in the community. Has been working through on updates to the victim services agreement with the province. We think we're about ready to be able to sign that agreement. As council will recall, you approved additional funding to expand the hours of victim services. We're going to continue to have conversations with OIB and the RDOS and Oliver about the potential to make this a truly regional service, where the costs and the participants are more reflective of the calls for service. It'll probably be some time in the making, but might as well have a conversation with them about that. We've got another group that's come forward and would like to have a license to use the Soyuz Airport. There's been a newly formed Soyuz Model Aviation Club, and because we previously granted the rights to the Penticton Model Airplane Club to use it from sunup to sundown 7 days a week, unless the Wine Country Racing was using it, the corporate officer had to speak with them about reducing or identifying some of the dates so that she could allow this other club access to the facility. And I think we'll see that report from her on the next regular agenda.
Can I just ask a question? When they're in use, who identifies when the plane's coming in, or how do they?
There's rules there, and they have to have a spotter. They ideally would have a radio
And they
tuned to the
also put a
local
note,
frequency.
I believe they put a note on.
They put a NOTAM on the.
Yeah, and so if it was an emergency, that's where they have the spotter,
Where do they put the note?
the note on, so they have to contact,
It's a notice to airmen through
Oh,
NAV
okay,
Canada
okay,
that
because
says there's these other activities.
I don't know
going
which
on.
group used it, but they were up there twice last year, and I mean, they're just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, some of them are pretty
They're
interesting.
flying pretty high. Yeah, they're pretty nice.
Yeah, so they have to file a NOTAM as well for
Yeah.
each day that they're going to use
Okay.
it. They're going to watch the weather. If it's very windy, they're not going to go out
Oh, they're sunny days. Planes are flying in and out too.
there. Oh yeah.
We got a busy airport.
Financial services, as per usual, the audit is still underway. Preparing the rural water billing and rural sewer billing. Those should be mailed out the third week of April. Be preparing the tax rates bylaw for council's consideration when we have the authenticated assessment roll from BC Assessment. That'll be coming forward. The fire equipment is, thanks council for approving the rapid response vehicle. That'll really enhance the services that we can provide and accelerate our abilities to fight any wildland fires that might spring up in the service area as well and respond quickly. The staff in the fire department completed a specialty chlorine spill response training, as Deputy Chief McCaskill spoke about this morning. They did some critical incident stress management training for their members so that they can debrief themselves for some of the more stressful incidents that they might attend during their service. 9 of the members were at Penticton for live fire training, and another 10 were supposed to go this past Saturday, and I believe they did. There's a training center there that has facilities that we don't have, and we got them in there just in time. There was another small structure fire on April 7th. There was no injuries with this one, but some damage to property. Planning and development, you heard all about it today. There's the council workshop planned for April the 20th to review a first draft of the complete OCP. Council's been provided, I think, a hard copy of that document to peruse at your leisure. We look forward to that process moving down the continuum. As noted earlier, lots of inquiries about properties and developments and investment opportunities in our community. Business license renewals and new business licenses continue to be issued. BYLAWS services has been busy with animal control issues, removing derelict and abandoned vehicles from town streets, dealing with a couple of unsightly properties, dealing with people living in RVs and vans on our streets as well. Every community is seeing more and more of that, and that's a problem. Building permits, there's been 5 new single-family building permits issued. There's 3 waiting to be issued, as noted earlier during tonight's meeting. Year-to-date values for building permits more than double what they were last year. And I don't think last year was too bad a year either for this community, so things are looking really positive there. Operational services, a bunch of their staff participated in the chlorine response training alongside our fire department. The agricultural water system has been turned on. We have lots of requests for early water. I imagine we'll have lots of agricultural watering happening with the warm weather planned for the rest of this week and the dry spring that we've had overall. It's been quite dry, so they'll probably be wanting to get things greened up. The RV Sandy dump near the operational services is now open for the season. They're working on spring tree pruning, maintenance, and spraying for pests. You'll notice that the water fountain at Town Hall has been refreshed and activated, as has the fountain at Pioneer Walkway, which is good. That one was out of service for a long time. Lots of capital going on in Public Works, Bayview Wastewater Treatment Center, Vedette Drive reconstruction, the work on the Main Street design, childcare expansion, the water system extension, domestic water training to the south of town. A fleet assessment is underway. We're talking about installing some additional water sampling wells, because we're taking our water samples previously from inside homes, and you're often sampling the inside plumbing system of the home as opposed to the water in your distribution network, and so council was told about that a while ago. And the town set up a new oil collection shipping container up at the landfill where people can bring their used oil for recycling, positive way. And we're now on summer hours at the sanitary landfill, 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday. Hours vary depending on the day of the week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could we, I know that the clinics, you mentioned those 3 days a week, and originally it was supposed to be 7 days a week starting this week, and I know it's because we don't have enough vaccine to do that. Is it possible to, and do we have links on our website that would give the latest information?
Yeah, people could go to soyuz.ca and there's a COVID highlights button.
Yes,
And
and
there
that's
will be
updated.
links to information there.
Okay, that's a good thing. That's what I've told a lot of people who've asked. So I just want to make sure that we have that updated so that the latest information from Interior Health is on there.
Okay, I see that you sent some messages last week. I don't know that anything has been updated since our last update, which was probably a week before that.
Mhm.
But primarily what we are doing is ensuring that we provide people with the correct links
Yes.
to go get the most current information, because it could change daily.
Yeah.
And it does, and it does.
So it does take you, I just went and clicked COVID-19 and it says 2021-03-15, it's time to get immunized, and it takes you to Interior Health, COVID-19 vaccines, and it gives you the schedule.
Good, because it was something that was sent to me from Interior Health last week, the end of the week, which I forwarded. And that would have the latest, information.
Yeah, we're trying to support them getting the message out,
Yeah.
people be able to find the correct information.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Could we have a motion to accept the CAO report, please? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to council reports. Councillor Rhodes,
I'm gonna pass.
okay. Councillor King,
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just mention one thing. Director Davis and myself were on a board meeting with Desert Park last week. From their point of view, they're very upbeat, positive. They're in the process of getting a new tractor. I don't know if it's new use, but it's about a $45,000 tractor, so that sounds pretty impressive. They're reaching out to a few other groups in Penticton and Oliver about bringing some more horses here. They've had a small, I'll call it a social with some of the owners and trainers up there, and from their feedback, they're very happy with the condition of the track right now. I'm sure it'll dry out a little more and they'll need water, and I think it's getting turned on.
Yeah, the water's on.
It's just been turned on, so that's great to hear. And they're really kind of happy working the staff. Mr. Schiffel mentioned earlier about trying to come to agreement with some type of contract, so.
Good.
Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Bennett,
I just want to put one school board, 53. Basically, they're one of the 5 school boards in BC that got chosen for a new program. It's to bring in a specialized worker for a 3-year term, an integrated child and youth team leader to deal with substance abuse, which is great. It's not because we have lots of substance abuse, it's just because the school board has done these programs before and has done such a great job that they were picked as one of the 5 places, so. pretty
that's
proud.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
Thank
it.
you very much. Councillor Harvey?
Yes, I have no report.
Thank you. So it's been a couple of, I think it's been 3 weeks since we had our last council meeting,
Has been
so
longer.
it has been pretty busy. Certainly, for me, I continue to be on mayors in IH meetings, Interior Health, and when I'm not able to because I have a RDOS meeting, whoever happens to be the acting mayor that month has been able to go on and hear the latest things. It happens once a week, every Thursday, and I'll tell you that there is new and exciting updates every week. So it's an interesting perspective. I was also on with Minister Osborne and the mayors from the Interior District talking with about how we're doing with COVID clinics and that type of thing. There were quite a few people who were on there that said they were having difficulty phoning the Interior Health number or whatever number they were given in their community and being able to come up with a time when they could get their COVID shot. Some of them were saying, as we've heard today, that there was no more availability for it. Some were being asked to go to other communities, and it's very confusing. So I have been on with Interior Health 3 or 4 times, trying to make sure that they understand what the concerns are, as well as with many other communities. And they seem to be doing a pretty good job of listening and trying to update things. But there are many, many factors that affect how much COVID vaccine we get here, and so it's an ongoing issue. So I can see that this is going to carry on for the next several months, and hopefully anybody who wants to can get vaccinated as soon as possible, because it seems to be just a really important issue to deal with. So I'm wearing my daffodil today because this is Cancer Cancer Awareness Month, and we used to have people from the Cancer Society providing live daffodils for many, many years on the streets, and then anybody who donates gets one of these in the mail. And so if you have one, if you've made a donation, please consider wearing your daffodil for the month of April. It's important. I was going to talk about Okanagan Basin Water Board for a sec. When I went home for lunch today, I was delighted to see out in the lake in front of me the red milfoil harvester. So there's a red one and a green one. And the easiest way to remember is red means rototill roots. And that's done at this time of year. In the one in the summertime is the green one, and it is a harvester because it gives a haircut. Okay, it doesn't dig out by the roots. So only the red one pulls out the roots, and they're trying. I think they've got 2 of them in Vesuvius, last I heard, and they're trying to de-root that while the lake level is still a little bit lower than usual. So just if you see that out there, that's what it is, red and green. We don't have the green here right now. And I was also on a Zoom meeting last week, Miss McKay was on it as well, about the national park. And we continue to be updated with information about it. It's still going to take quite a long time, I think, before we ever get to the next step, because there's many things that are being brought up, and a lot of the regional district directors and I think MLA Russell was on that call, so was MP Cannon. So it continues to move forward, and the people that are doing this, which they've been doing in this area since 2002, that was when the first storefront was set up here. They continue to look at ways that we can make this happen, and so we will continue to go on meetings with that. And I think that's all that I had to say. This has been a long day and interesting day, learning about lots of different things, and so I appreciate anybody who's online watching this. It's been a long meeting, and thank you to Mrs. Hilson and CEO Chabot and to council for dealing with all of these things and keeping a positive view on all the wonderful things that are happening